Hello and welcome, ladies and gentlemen, to the VCS English Summer. What are we in, like week 6, the end of week 6, the final day? It's just insane that we have basically 1 week of play after today before we get into playoffs. We start getting into ramifications for Worlds. Everything starts to really ramp up here for the VCS to prepare us for a lot of what is the future world stage for a lot of us here at VCS and all of our wonderful, wonderful possible teams that are going to be entering that array. And I'm Rebel Fox. I'm your host to kick off today. And alongside me, of course, we've got Tim and Beast. How are you gents doing on the day?
I'm doing great. Finally back again. Not have been here for 2.5 weeks now, I think. So I was really missing the VCS and excited to be back for this game, and especially Series One with Saigon in there, looking for the third place. I'm excited.
And I'm looking forward to GE in relegations because we deserve to have a better team than GE.
I think that's reasonable. You're taking shots out of the gate, and I can appreciate that. But let's rein it in at least for a second. I can also appreciate that there's fewer British people on broadcast because for 2 weeks, unfortunately, without Tim, that means that we've had less Germans and more Brits. I don't know how we replace that replacement, but no more Milky is a solid play. Thankfully, he's not on today, so I'm not gonna have to worry about that. Let's just talk about spoilers. All right, let's talk about the biggest ramification of the day, which is that I'll just start it like this. I think it's really easy to do this, right? Genius Esports are one loss away from locking into relegations, which you can spin as they're very close to being like sent to relegations. You could also spin it as they're not quite out yet, right? They can still win every single game remaining in the split in 2-0s, and Cerberus can still lose out the remaining split, who also play a little bit later today. Given that Genius plays with Saigon, ASE, and Cerberus to end the split, Cerberus is playing GAM, SE, and Genius to finish the split. Do you give them a fighting chance legitimately?
No.
CES could lose all three of those games. That's the good news for GE. The bad news is they have to beat SGB today, and
Mhm.
I think that's one step too far for GE to be able to win. They only have 2 wins this split, and SGB have had a really good run of form.
Yeah, I would. I think CES will win against GE. I think GE is not looking great. I'm not sure who I would give it to, ASE or GE. I probably still would give it to GE, and I think they're just gonna get 3 series wins and end the season with 3 series wins.
That's reasonable. I mean, it's Genius hasn't showed us too much growth over the course of the split. I think it's been really easy just to be like, okay, this team. I know right before we started, we were talking about how they probably deserve to be relegated, which is completely fair that this team has not lived up to expectations in the slightest. So let's go to the opponent for them on the day because obviously they're playing up against Saigon Buffalo in a not only is this a hotly contested race not to get relegated because literally every game is important for Genius Esports, but Saigon Buffalo is in a very close tiebreaker match with 2 other teams just for the 4th playoff spot, let alone if you're throwing, SBTC Esports inside of all of that and you're like, like the 3rd playoff spot's also up for grabs as well. So Genius Esports did beat them at the beginning of the split. Tell me about Saigon Buffalo's growth in the second half and whether or not they're destined for playoffs.
I think they're definitely destined for playoffs. I would actually put them third because they have probably the easiest schedule to go. They have Team Wales, which is the best team they're going to face, and then they have ASE and GE today, so the bottom 2 teams. So I can actually see them going third over SBTC, and especially in the past 6 series, they're actually 5-1, and the only team they lost to is GAM, which far and away I think in the second half has been the best team. And we had a huge discussion actually about the teams and who we see going into playoffs and then going into worlds. And most of us actually saw them being a better team than Team Secret going into playoffs. And they kind of showed that last week by also beating Team Secret. So I actually think I'm really excited to see them play. And they should just get it to clean 2-0 today and just show that they're the better team.
I'm not quite that high on SGB, but I still think they're the 3rd best team, and I still think they're pretty much locked for playoffs.
Okay, interesting. So again, let's come back to the matchup because obviously Genius Esports plays Saigon Buffalo in our first game today, and there are legitimate stakes for both of these teams. It's not one of these games that ends up not mattering because G's not quite locked for relegation. They can still get out of the basement, and Saigon Buffalo can still fall out of playoffs. They have to take every game seriously, even if they've got weak type of play. And Genius did win last time that they played, so. Ever since that, what was it, a week 2 matchup? I think it was like the first game of week 2, or this is the second day of week 2, something like that, when they played. What's changed for specifically Saigon, but both of these teams that leads you to believe that Saigon will, I believe it was Tim that's at 2-0 today. And I guess Beast, you can also give your prediction as to what you believe the series is going to be like today.
Yeah. When they first played, Saigon Buffalo was 1-3 at the time, and they would call it MSI hangover, even if it might not be, but MSI hangover. And then GE actually had some hope, but GE's hope's been ground into dust, and Saigon Buffalo have something to play for with getting third seed. So a big motivation shift and massive change in form for both teams.
Yeah, I think beginning of the split, Genius actually they have some decent firepower in their players, right? Individually, those players aren't completely bad, and I think we saw that with 2 close series against Secret, against SBTC to start off week 1. Yes, they lost both of them, but then they looked good against Wales, and they looked okayish versus GAM, and that's how they went into the first series with Saigon. And actually, I think in those first 2.5 weeks, they actually looked like one of the contender teams, a team that had a lot of potential. And if some improvement came, they could be a playoff contender. And then I think we quickly realized that they had a lot of potential in individual players, but there wouldn't be any improvement. On the contrary, I think every time we saw them play, they just devolved more into a mess. And I don't think that mess is really fixable for them at this point.
Okay. Are we believing, I guess I didn't get this from Beast, are you believing a 2-0 for Saigon on the day 4 for a series?
Yeah, I think they're just too much better, even if Saigon Buffalo do have some coin flip drafts that I could actually I will change that 2-1 because Saigon Buffalo play some stupid, insane draft like the mod jungle Shyvana mid that we saw earlier this split.
See, I find it very funny that that's the analysis because in the same series that they lose in 2-1s, it feels like that's the draft that gets them their win instead of losing the game against a random
I mean,
teams.
mid lane Shyvana wasn't really it. So yeah, I agree on that one.
Mid lane Shyvana goes hard. I don't want to hear from the cluster of you bunches here. All right, just wait till the Rammus mid gets busted out by Froggy, just like the
No.
olden days.
No.
Okay. So, what players are you looking for inside of this series, Saigon up against Genius that are looking to be impactful? I guess you can make a bunch of references towards Saigon side, but specifically, is there anybody you're looking at from Genius to step up for the day, specifically so that they have some semblance of a fighting chance against this team?
Yeah. I mean, Slater has looked good in some spots where he is still a decent team fighting AD carry. So maybe he just gets a good draft and then finds himself in a head position on something like a Jinx, maybe even a Kai'Sa, and just pops off from there. Maybe even the Zeri, and maybe they find a win through that. But I mean, they have very little fight left in them. I feel like Coated really isn't looking great. Egen is not great. I think the support situation is an absolute disaster. And then you have Blazes in mid lane who, on his own, doesn't really look great either. So I'm really not sure where it comes from. Maybe somebody can overperform, but I feel like if Saigon is gonna lose a game, it's gonna be to them for them to lose and for them to just run it down, and not really for Genius to play a great game.
Yeah, I completely agree. The current version of Genius, I can't see getting a win unless SGB hand it to them. They do have some subs in Dante and Zodiac, but I can't see them playing them if they've not played them yet.
And I don't think they've actually had any of them play during the course of the split, which means that we're going to be kicking off our first draft of the day with Buffalo on the blue side, Genius Esports on the red side, without any chances. We didn't hear anything about new substituted players, so it is most likely to be just that base form, as you're getting double ADC, especially that early ADC taken from Arietti, and double ADC down on the red side as well. The Zeri and the Sivir already taken away from Shogun.
So Aphelios is still up. That's probably the best ADC left out. Callista has made it through over Jinx, and that's really surprising.
Wait, we have 6 AD carry bans.
Yeah. So 6 AD carry bans. What's even left? We do have Aphelios, but then I'm trying to think of the 8th best ADC, and I have no idea.
Yeah, Kaiser?
Yeah, I mean, it's actually Kai'Sa for Slater, right?
Yeah.
Because I think Ezreal is in a much worse spot than Kai'Sa. I mean, both aren't great right now, but I mean, it would be kind of the obvious pick. Now we take away the Renata from the Aphelios lane. It's one of the premier scaling and even lane dominant lanes in some spots. Or we're just taking the Nautilus and getting counter-picked by Renata. That's also really great. And now I'm just hoping they're picking the Kai'Sa because, like, the Nautilus pick only really makes sense if you have that Kai'Sa, because Kai'Sa with a Renata is not perfectly aligned, while Nautilus Kai'Sa is just a strong lane and would make more sense together with that roaming mid laner on Blazes.
So Wukong's still up, and there's so many good picks, and we end up with a Nautilus, and yeah, this is very weird start to the draft. We see Pantheon when Wukong's up, and you know, I did mention that GE can win if SGB throw out a curveball, and this is a curveball. Vex Pantheon just out of nowhere.
Let's go. Okay, Saigon's getting some new adaptions on the meta. First off, Froggy was a really good Vex, like when Vex was a powerful enough champion, and then Pantheon's been popping up in the meta at least a little bit more, and Saigon has always been our most meta-adept team for picking sometimes weird things, obviously, but also picking things that are, you know, quicker to pick up things that are in the meta around the world. And this is something we've seen more of as of lately, is this Pantheon jungle pick kind of popping up into a priority more than anything else. What do you two make of that for BeamJ especially?
I mean, I think it's just a good jungler you can have early pressure with, and it makes sense together with the Vex, because it's a duo that can just engage very easily into team fights that in the early game can very easily take over the map. And now we actually see a Samira being locked in, and I mean, isn't Samira just bad into Pantheon? Like the champion just jumps on you and you're dead, no? I mean,
we're seeing a very interesting draft here. Poppy and Wukong are going to get banned, and Renata. All 3 of these champions were up, and I don't know what's happened here, to be honest. It's just VCS drafting too far.
And now we see Viego getting locked in for Yijin, just to make us really happy. Okay. We might see the horse. It would be better than the Viego. I would like to see more the horse than the Viego, but I think if you really want to go for it, I think it would be the Nocturne, but it's going to end up being the Jarvan.
Should be fine here. There's not much that Aphelios can do other than flash if he's in the J4, so it is the classic pick into it, so I can see why they've gone for it. But SGB hovering Gragas, I'd like to see Gragas top actually. It's sort of fallen out of the meta, but as a blind it's going to be tanky, it's got wave clear, there's not much you can really do to it. And this draft's definitely going to focus on the mid jungle, so just having that safe top lane is really nice for Hasmet.
Okay, hear me out. You pick Nocturne now and you put the Pantheon in bot. Okay, we might be seeing the Gragas into bot and then Aatrox blind pick in top lane.
Okay.
Or we see the Pantheon support and we put the Gragas in the jungle.
Or the Gragas support.
Yeah, I mean, Fiora would be the obvious counter pick, I think, to a degree, into Aatrox. Camille is a bit Aatrox's favorite and really depends on jungle interaction and top lane. So it is definitely a risky pick to go for. Fiora is a less risky one. It's a really good matchup into Aatrox. And actually, Fiora is one of the main reasons why I think Aatrox right now is really not a good blind pick, because you get Fiora on, and especially with the Ghost, Coated should be able to easily run down Hazmat whenever he wants.
This draft's just wild, man. Ari goes unpicked, unbanned. We have Aphelios, and it's not a Lulu with it. We have mid lane Vet. We have jungle Pantheon coming in, which is a bit more meta. You know, it's good when the second most meta pick in your team is just Pantheon jungle.
I mean, also, they picked Pantheon Vex when they could have had a Renata with their Aphelios.
Mhm.
It's I really like. I'm also a bit flabbergasted. I think the draft that ended up on both sides is somewhat understandable, but like how we got here is like really confusing.
It's a little crazy. We're jumping quickly into game just as fast as possible. You two have had plenty of thoughts on this, so I want to get quick one hits. Who do you think actually takes this game? Because this draft has been crazy, and I just need to get the immediate gut reaction of who's going to take it based on draft.
I'd go for Samira Bad, so SGB win.
Great decision.
I think the mid jungle duo of SGB is the better in players, better in champions, and I would give it to them.
All right. Well, I think we have the double vote up for Saigon Buffalo walking into game number 1 here with this insane draft with a lot of champions that are a little bit new, especially to the split. I'm excited to see a lot of the stuff that they have to bring out. It's electrifying, nonetheless. Saigon Buffalo never ceases to entertain us with a lot of their draft. The thing that's driving me crazy right now is that somehow Samira's portrait is slightly above every other champion on the bottom side's portrait, so I'd really love to get off this screen just as fast as possible, because it is absolutely digging at my skin right now. This champion is just slightly taller than all of the rest of them, and I have absolutely no reason to suspect why. Okay, it looks like we are actually going to be loading into the sweat. We're not going to have to vamp for any more time. So we're going to send it over to our wonderful casting duo of Milky and Yoe to kick off the day.
Thank you very much, Rebel. We are heading onto the Rifter for Game 1. And as Rebel very keenly pointed out, that portrait was a little bit too big your way. And I'm just wondering if that's maybe a hint of what's to come. Maybe a big Samira, big shutdown we're going to be seeing for Slader later on in this game.
We can only hope. Genius Esports, at this point, they're not really playing for much. They could potentially try to catch Cerberus, but I believe they, even if they catch them in serious score, they would still be placed beneath them, so they're not really playing for that much right now. They just want to build synergy, want to experiment with some compositions here and there, and just try to get as strong as possible to survive that all-important relegation tournament. So why not put the big Samira in here, and maybe Slader can carry you like in the good old times.
I think it was quite interesting as well how we saw picks and bans unfolding, because we saw 6 ADC bans at the start, which to me kind of seems like it's both Saigon Buffalo and Genius saying, look, both of our ADCs are very good. Let's see who can dig deeper into their champion pool and find a better ADC to pick. And Saigon Buffalo said, look, we're on blue side, we get first pick of our ADC, we take the Aphelios. Genius, what do you have left? And Slater, you know, there are a few ADCs left. I think the analyst that's talked about Kai'Sa, you even had the possibility of maybe the Twitch.
Yep.
But Slater said, give me the Samira, we're going to stomp this lane with Samira Nautilus.
And Samira, surprisingly, hasn't actually made that big of a splash into the VCS so far. In all the iterations of VCS, we've seen the odd Samira performance. I remember some good Artemis games. I think Slader played it a few times here and there, but it's never really been one of our stable picks, one of our, like, Docdum over in the LCK really likes to play Samira, is a really good Samira player, but we don't really have that big Samira specialist over here, so it's really only on the fringes. It's fun to see her every now and then. I personally really like to play Samira, she's a lot of fun. But she can fall short, especially against point-and-click CC, so how to navigate Samira and teamfights into Gragas, and especially Pantheon, is gonna be a struggle, but maybe Slater can give us the answer to this puzzle.
Shogun is taking so much damage,
Taki!
and Taki body blocks the flag and drag. This is why Taki is one of the best supports in the league, and now Shogun and Taki forcing Yijin out of the lane.
Beautiful, Taki just playing bodyguard. That's another one with a good amount of CC on Slater later in the game, so we also need to keep our eyes on Taki. He can play every champ, we know it. He just gave us the support Rumble earlier this week. Now it's support Gragas. Honestly, if we look at Taki's champion pool, support Gragas seems like a tame choice. And here he goes again!
This time it's BJ saying howdy into the bottom lane, but Slade and BOB will be safe. Not even forced to burn any summoners. Now they're pushing really far forward. BJ is still there. Taki stepping forward, looking for BOB, flashing away, the Ignite ticking down, but the Dredge line will not take the Nautilus out to safety. Yeeja making his way over, but this is a 2v3, and Slater decides against going in.
Good patience from BJ. To be fair, Biob made it pretty easy for him to just stand there for 2 seconds in the bush. But very nice engage from Taki on him again, and that's an early kill against Samira's lane. To be fair, it went over to BJ, so it's not really gonna profit Shogun all that much. It alleviates a lot of pressure and gives him an assist, which is always nice to have. Gives him a free reset, but in the end, the kill over to BJ means more damage in the early skirmishes for this super strong Pantheon jungle. And I mean, look at this crit. 173 at level 3. That sounds fair to me.
Well, not the best of starts for BOB. He did the equivalent of cutting himself up, putting himself on a plate, and then seasoning himself with some salt and pepper before handing BJ the cutlery and said, please dig in.
A little bit puzzling, his decision to just instantly turn around and walk back in there when he knew BJ was definitely still there. He literally just showed on the screen. Showing on the screen of Coated is BJ once again in top lane, but this time warded nicely. Coated has been one of the players that we've talked about a lot over the course of, honestly, the last few years. Very streaky player, has some very good carry performances, was super famous for his Jax, but also his Fiora, actually. Not super successful so far in this split, 1 and 2 on the Fiora so far, but it's one of those champions that if you can get Coated elite, maybe it's enough to push you away from your 9-game losing streak, because you desperately need someone to play through. Just anyone stepping up for GE would be great, because they just need to get out of this misery of the 9-game losing streak. So I think the Coated Fiora is actually a good option here. Sorry.
And when you look towards Genius as well, you can see, or we have seen, at some point in the past, every single player having a good split. Tark's getting caught out, good dredge line. Yijin having snuck his way into the lane, and it is Slater who is able to pick up the first kill for Genius.
Very clean combo from GE. Biob definitely paying back his ADC for inting him earlier, and now getting him a free kill. So that's a very good start for Slater on the side of the Samira. He's the other hyper carry in this composition. It's either Samira or Fiora that have to do the heavy lifting later on, and Slater, definitely one we have seen succeed on the highest of levels in VCS, of course, 2-time champion in 2020. So, yeah, why not try to put all the eggs into the Slater basket? I expect even more ganks down here once Blazes hits level 6, which just happened. So, this is going to be a little bit of a test for Saigon Buffalo's bot lane. Can they just resist this bot lane pressure that's going to be oncoming from the side of Genius Esports in the next few minutes?
Blazes and Yijin looking towards this mid lane. The analyst has talked about the power of the 2v2 and spoke about how strong the Vex Pantheon duo is. And we'll wait and see whether they can eventually start to get some rotations going. Of course, BJ able to get across the map very quickly with the Grand Starfall. And Froggy has a lot of range available with the Shadow Surge, so can join into a play on either the bottom side or top side with relative ease.
And to me, this Vex and draft just looked like they still wanted to go for Taliyah, but Taliyah was picked already, so they just went, okay, what's the next best Taliyah's substitute? Well, I guess Vex. Froggy's a really good Vex, so here we go.
The mid-jungle 2v2 coming into action. Blaze is forced to burn the flash, forced to burn the cleanse. Taki here as well. Genius are making their way up at 2. Froggy is relatively low, but it looks like Yijin is just going to be providing some bodyguard services for his mid laner.
And attacking the Taliyah is a classic strategy before she gets to roam, because now every single roam is going to be that much more dangerous for the side of Blazes, because if you ever overstep into the tower or Taki outplays you with some insane combo, or even just the red-white combo, kills you more quickly than you anticipated. Oh, speaking of dying more quickly than you anticipated, nope. not quite happening in bot lane right now. BJ seems to be a little bit slow on his ganks, I'd say, or not quite as active as I would have thought he would be on this Pantheon. The one time he played the Pantheon before, this week or last week, I think this week, where, yeah, he ended the game just carrying the whole early game after failing the initial dive. So there's still time for him to make his presence known, but maybe not quite as active as I would have liked to see.
Speaking of his previous Pantheon's performance, we can play a bit of a mini-game as coach and actually burning the ultimate, but Husband says, I will challenge you nonetheless. Grand challenge, I have the superior challenge, and the top laners continue to duke it out, but somehow, both top laners end up having more health than they did when they started the fight.
Drain tanks! Woo!
You know, I usually thought Fiora, Aatrox, these are aggressive top laners, this is going to be spicy, and then they both just heal up by a stupid amount from the fight, and it only goes badly for Kotan at the very end when Harsmid lands a couple of the Darken Blades.
Oh, that's Taki, no ultimate though. Yeah, I think that's the first time ever I've seen someone fight Fiora in her Grand Challenge and just ignore the Grand Challenge healing completely. Harsmid just bathed in that. He was like, okay, you get to heal, but I want to heal too, so let's just exchange some hits here, nothing's gonna happen. Both ultimates down. Looking at the cooldowns, it seems like they're relatively synced. There might be a little bit of a 10-15 seconds window for Coated to attack Harsmid before Harsmid's ultimate is available. So keep your eyes.
Oh, look at Yijin.
Yeah, that's another bot side attention. Oh, Yijin also brings the Biob is level 6 as well. Taki needs to be super careful. Yijin also has the Herald.
This is so patient.
Look at Yijin.
Did they spot Yijin there?
I don't think so, but I think Yijin is too scared of the white gun, because he's only sitting on barely 1000 HP. If you overextend into the tower there, yeah, look at it. He's very squishy at this point, so actually not going for this aggressive gank, and now losing a lot of time. So let's see if Pantheon can make anything happen. He can flash on top of Blazes, and that's probably Blazes' death. If he flashes into Froggy ultimate, Froggy W, I think Blazes probably dies, so BJ really just wanting to get any kind of angle on Blazes here in the mid lane.
Blazes is going to have that cleanse of cooldown shortly, so he can start to play a little bit more aggressively, a little bit more greedily. But Taki is following BJ. You know what they say, jungle diff is support diff. Yijin is going to get spotted out by BJ, but BJ not quite close enough to be able to jump on top of Yijin with the shield assault.
A lot of posturing, a lot of movement through the jungle as we've quietly just passed the 10 minute mark, apologies. And so far this week, our games have been kind of calm, especially in the early game. And SGB, the last time they played the early game, they actually basically just entered away multiple early games and then came back with amazing plays in the mid game. So not losing. Oh, Blazes, very good cleanse. Might still die though.
Has been used, but in comes the Shadow Surge from Froggy, and there is no flash available. Taki though looks for Yijin, will be able to flash after the second iteration of the ult, but here comes the Grand Starfall. BOB are locked down. Moonlight Vigil will land into Graviton, but there's a Cataclysm. BJ taking so much damage. Slater now jumping in, cleanses, flashes forward, finds a kill onto BJ, but will die for the kill, and it is 2 kills for 1 for SGB.
And finally we get some action on the bottom side of the rift. BJ really wanted to make this happen early, but he finally gets on top of Blazes. Very good cleanse, but it's not enough to get away from the Vex. What does this mean for the grand scheme of things? I think Shogun really likes this, because he can push in another tower, probably gets a plate here, but take your eyes, or just don't take your eyes of the side of Samira when she comes in, because she actually plays this fight in a way that we have to keep in mind for the rest of the game, because Slater doesn't go into ultimate before he knows the CC is gone. You can see Slater here, he's stacking up, he cleanses away, then flashes to finish the kill, and wanted to, okay, he didn't actually have an opportunity to go into ult, but that's how he has to conduct himself later on in the fights as well, where he just has to wait for the CC to land, basically bait the CC that's meant to interrupt his ultimate, cleanse, and go into ultimate after. So, yeah, it's the basic Katarina formula, and of course, Samira, very similar in that aspect. Still doubtful if that's gonna work, because there's so much CC, so much instant CC, but at least Slater knows what he's doing.
Now, I'm gonna say something your way that is a little bit divisive, let's say, because over the past few weeks, there have been a lot of talks, and I am willing to go into this because there is a definite answer right now. And that's to talk about Froggy, because a lot of people have been very down on Froggy and not thought that he's been a fantastic mid laner. Right now, he's playing really well. I'll hold that for a thought. Hearthmate could look to go in on Coated the Grand Challenge, and Coated is way too scared to proc more of the vitals. But right now, Froggy, not only is he up in kills on Blazes, he's up in CS on Blazes as well. We've seen him roaming around far more than Blazes. This has been a very good performance so far from Froggy, and I think this whole split for Froggy, he's been putting more and more of the doubters down.
Here we have a huge fight as BJ gets engaged on, but Shogun, can he retaliate? Oh, Biob, wow, flashing over the wall here.
Flashes, lands the dredge line in, it comes to Weaver's Wall, the focus is on
Froggy!
Shogun able to find the kill on Slater, now the ADC for Genius is dead, Blazes just does not have the damage output, and Saigon Buffalo are completely turning this around, Void Searcher lands, in goes Froggy onto BOB, gets the fear onto Blazes. Blazes will fall as well, and BOB is the only member left standing. There won't be another Shadow Surge because I think it landed onto BOB, so he didn't get the reset on it.
And there we see Froggy in action. So, throughout his whole career, Froggy, when he started in 2021, let's look at this fight in particular and then talk about Froggy at the end of it. BJ gets engaged on, they actually managed to isolate this Pantheon. It's such a hard thing to do, to kill the Pantheon early on, but they actually get him out of the equation. But Shogun is in such a good spot to just get a lot of damage down. Yeah, I think there was a Gale Force forward from Shogun, very aggressively played, but they just don't have a little bit too much damage, and with the enemy ADC going down, there's just not enough to retaliate from the side of GE. Hearthmate also coming in clutch, saving his mid laner, but now let's go back to the Froggy point, because he has always been this kind of player where, when he came in, everyone looked at his laning phase the first 15 minutes, and everyone flamed him for his laning phase, and justifiably so. He was down 15 to 20 CS every single game, and then he made amazing engages and amazing teamfights plays, and it was always, Taki, what have you just done?
Taki was doing Taki things. For those people who are new to the VCS, Taki's like Hylissang, but with less int. But that time, I guess he went for the play onto Coated a bit before Hearthmate and Froggy were ready to follow up.
I guess he got his flash, so now Hearthmate can go for the solo kill. Yeah, just trading life with flash. That's a very standard Hylissang thing to do. It's very fun to watch. But to finish the Froggy point, he improved his laning tremendously. Now, he's still behind 4 CS on average at 15 minutes. Compared to someone like Glory, who's a really good laner, or Artifact, he's still not on their level. But he plays every champion in the game. He's the only mid laner that constantly gets Seraphine banned against him, because you can't beat SGB. Oh no. And there he is as well.
Slater. Man, I think Slater got a heart attack when all of a sudden a Void Surge came out from the bush. Blazes going onto Shogun but can't land the seismic shove. Cleanses use. Out comes the Moonlight Vision while the rest of Genius just focusing on Darky Cataclysm used as well. Not the Cataclysm. That would be a weird way to pronounce the Jarvan ultimate. But do Genius want more, or are they just looking to walk away? This would be a 3v4. Shogun is relatively low, but the chains have landed onto BOB. He's forced to go
Yijin, what?
In goes Yijin, but do they have the damage? BJ has been taken low. Yijin flashing over the wall. Somehow Genius are almost surviving. BJ with a sliver of health will be able to make his way out alive, but now Blazes is in the fire and is in the firing line of Shogun as Froggy picks up the kill.
And it's a fist fight, and that's where SGB thrives. They really like to just hand-stiff their opponents. And there we go. BJ, you had no HP.
Slater just goes in. He takes so much damage from Froggy, and for a second, I thought Slater was going to make one of those Samira outplays.
He tried. He was getting close. Slater is actually, he's looking at these montage plays, and he's getting closer and closer, but it's just so hard to do against the instant fear from Froggy. That's what I'm actually seeing in every single fight. Froggy just sitting on top of Samira and just pressing W, and Samira's done. But I didn't really understand what Yijin was thinking here. He tried. I guess he tried to buy time for Kota to carry his the fight, but really, really nice coordination for SGB. You can just see their in-fight communication or even just in-fight synergy, because I don't actually think they communicate much. That's all just instincts, and their instincts are fine-tuned.
Well, we've got a play on the picture-in-picture. Harsmet getting caught out by Yijin and Coated, but in comes Froggy with the Void Surge. B.O.B. making his way over. The dredge line will land. But Harsmet will not fall, and in the end, the Grand Challenge just used way too late, and B.O.B., he's just going to stand there. He knows that he's dead. He knows that there is no way out, and Froggy will pick up a triple kill.
And what a good way to come back to the Froggy point you introduced. Froggy, once he's out of lane, I think he's the best playmaker from the mid lane position. And in Splits prior, I was always on the fence about all the Froggy hate, because in my opinion, Froggy has always been an amazing player. Not so much a good mid laner, and not so much good in the laning phase. So a lot of people criticized him for the getting solo killed, getting behind in CS. But once he got out of the laning phase and actually into the teamfight phase, his engaged sense, his synergy with all the other players. Please let me speak.
Onto Shogun. There is no way out for the ADC, but it doesn't matter. Shogun just survives in the end. Blazes will be able to get the kill. But Harsmet has teleported his way, and Slater really wants one kill, and he'll find one onto Taki, but does he have the damage for Harsmet? B.O.B. flashing forward. Dredgeline's only going to be able to connect with the wall. Froggy able to get the kill onto Blazes, but now BJ is here as well. Dredgeline narrowly misses out on the Aatrox as BJ trying to zone Coated away. Froggy has returned. The Grand Challenge has been so much damage onto BJ, but Froggy dives in onto Slater. Gone to Coated. It's going to fall. And look at that big ass shield on Froggy. He's still alive, but eventually Slater will get one. Jumps back in, but will fall. Dredgeline from B.O.B. slowing onto Harsmet, but Harsmet and BJ are just going to chase down this Nautilus. They land a knock-up, at that time the Dredgeline is right in front of B.O.B.'s face, and it means that Saigon Buffalo will pick up the last kill of the fight.
Can you not love this league? These two teams are going all out and full-on crazy. What? Yijin is just going on a mission this game. Who needs jungle camps when you can just kill the opponents? I mean, he sacrifices himself for the better of his team, I guess, and Slade actually playing this really nicely. Once again, waiting out the CC and then using his ultimate and E to get on the other side of that annoying big thing from the top lane. The Aatrox can't really do much. And look at Slater, he's one stack away from his ultimate again, but now these stacks fall off, so that's actually one of the crucial moments in the fight, because now Slater can't really get to the same insane damage output that Samira can sometimes bring. So good crit, 1000 gold shutdown. There's a silver lining on the horizon, but in the end it's still a one team fight for SGB, as there's just too much consistent damage from all these positions. You can have Harsmet survive, you can have Shogun survive, or even PJ can bring a decent amount of damage. So right now it's pretty hard to get through all of SGB.
We're fighting again. Where's the chance for the narrative point? Slater completely caught out. Great pick by Taki, and then
hit
for more. The Void Surge lands onto Yijin. In goes Froggy. Does he have the damage? He's got the fear. There's the barrel as well. No blast cone for the genius jungler, and he is 2 quick kills for Saigon Buffalo.
Oh my god, this is one of my favorite compositions of all time to watch. I want to see Gragas Vex every game. The combination of these disgusting CCs together is so cool to watch. Taki and Froggy in tandem, and that's another point we made earlier. Look at Froggy, he's 40 CS down, but he's also 9-1-9. He has synergy with literally every player of his team. This is an amazing performance from this mid laner, and they are finally going to take an objective here. Yeah, that's actually what League is about, but SGB would not have you think that objectives are actually the goal of the game.
In fairness to Saigon Buffalo, they haven't been allowed to take objectives because Genius have been fighting them every time they spawn from the base after dying from a previous skirmish. And I think the only thing that could make this game like better compositionally for Saigon Buffalo is if they had that Kalista for Shogun.
And to be fair, I actually really like to see Genius Esports try everything. Try to go for every fight, try to just flip it here, flip it there. Maybe the enemy team oversteps, maybe you get a huge outplay. Because, I mean, they're on a 9-game losing streak. They have nothing to play for in terms of standing. They just want to end above AS Esports, but even that doesn't matter too much because you get a two-way qualification back into the league. So at this point, it's all about just finding synergy, finding confidence, finding your carries, and maybe it's coded.
Maybe it's finding Hazmed, but never mind. Taki is here to keep his top laner alive. Explosive cask used. And in goes BJ under tower. The focus onto Kosa, but that is a really nice riposte from the Genius top laner. It doesn't matter. The wallets from Saigon Buffalo are just way too big.
He
Point
wants it.
Searchland.
He
Froggy,
wants it.
go in, baby. Go in. You know you want to under the inhibitor. Froggy. You're just too damn good this game.
His KDA is too juicy. He doesn't want to die again. It's fair. It's fair enough. But how is Froggy always there? That's another aspect. I'm going to stop my Froggy praise for now, but that's the last thing I want to talk about. He's always there when the plays happen. His kill participation is really high for a mid laner, and you see why. He's just always there with his team. He loves to group up with BJ, with Taki, with Hasmit as well this game, multiple times. And, I mean, if it works like this, you can understand why.
Do Genius want to find another fight? They see Froggy, they see Taki. Oh, that was nice from Froggy. Just blasting Yijin away. One other thing I do want to talk about is I want to touch on Coach, because every time I cast on Genius or I'm on the analyst desk and Genius are playing, I always bring this up, which is the fact that if we wind back to spring, Coach was this incredibly aggressive player who played Graves, Renekton, and Jace practically every single game. And then this split, we started to see a more measured Coated. We started to see very different champions being played, the likes of the Gangplank, the likes of the Gnar, these kind of weak side top laners. But every now and then we do see Coated going towards some of the more aggressive top laners, like this Fiora. But this time Harsman is saying, look, you want to play an aggressive top laner, I'm going to play an aggressive top laner, and I'm the better top laner than you.
And Coated has always been the specialist for counterpicks, even more so than some of our other top laners, but no time for narratives as we have another fight.
I really want to praise Genius for going for these plays. They're not going to take this loss lying down, but it doesn't matter. Even if they stand up, Saigon Buffalo will just jump on them and sit them back down. Body slam onto Blazes, forced to flash away. B.O.B. on the run, but is being chased down by Harsmed, and actually will somehow survive momentarily, but that Aatrox on the minimap is still chasing a poor Nautilus. Surely there's no way out for B.O.B. He's got no summoners. He's trying to pay Harsmed all around, but Harsmed just has too much mobility. Reaver's Wall coming through. Blazes and Genius think that they have found a numbers advantage, but Harsmed is already back in the mid lane, and it is a double kill for Froggy, and Slater can't do anything right now. Another Grand Star fall forward, and Genius are just getting wiped off the map.
27 to 10 kills in 25 minutes, by the way, Knilky. This is a special kind of game. As Saigon Buffalo decided today they wanted blood, and blood is what they got. They also have to pay a few times, but what a first game of the day. Saigon Buffalo definitely having a lot of fun on the Rift. Froggy ended with, I don't know, 10 kills or something, and everyone just performing out of their mind for this first game of the day.
The Rift has been painted red in the colours of Saigon Buffalo. And do you remember before we were talking about how we were at 10 minutes in and it was 1 kill to 1? Do you remember that?
I seem to remember it actually was the scoreline, yeah. How did it accelerate this fast?
So what was that? 35 kills in 17 minutes.
37, I think, yeah. 25
37.
minutes.
Bloody hell. Either way, an absolute cracker of the game, and can't wait for more in Game 2. We're going to be throwing into a short break as our very poor analyst desk. I think I could imagine Beast just sitting there thinking, oh, this is a good fight to have to review. And they'd be like, oh no, this is a better fight to review. So we'll see what they've picked up to review, but we'll be back in just a short bit.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the VCS English Analyst Desk. Fellas, what happened that game? Goodness gracious. I saw Pantheon, I saw Vex, I saw a bunch of early game type champions. It's like the durability patch never even happened that game. We just went right back to old school VCS 10 kills a minute type beat. What in the world did we watch?
You just watched a stomp. It was 1.46 combined kills per minute. And yeah, that is kind of what we expected from this matchup, but not quite this dominant. Froggy, can't remember the exact KDA, something like 11, 1 and 10. Just completely smuffed the game.
Yeah. I mean, going into this, we had a huge discussion in the analyst desk and overall also with clerics and everybody. Is Froggy actually a good player? And I think we didn't argue he's a good player, but is he really like a great player, one of the best we have right now? And I guess you don't need to farm minions when you farm champions. And I think farming minions it has been an issue for him. Building up lane leads for him has been an issue. And I think if you just go to every skirmish and win every skirmish, then it's not a problem. And I mean, that is his strength, right? Give him an early game roaming champion, the Galio, the Vex, the Talia, stuff like that. Send him down to his bot lane, send him up to his top lane, send him with his jungle to skirmish. And that's where he excels. And that's what I did great with the Pantheon, with the Vex.
It's really funny because when I first started, Froggy was super bad. And then the split afterwards, which is when I started watching this team with any intent because they subbed out all their players. That was when they started picking Yone mid lane and fighting all the time. And they picked Kayn mid lane and they started fighting all the time. And it's been the crux of what I wanted to see from Froggy literally since that day. Since those days of him just moving out of mid lane, constantly skirmishing, constantly fighting, making plays as much as possible. And this felt like a whole composition that was kind of designed around that, which was really neat to see from Saigon Buffalo. Maybe we didn't appreciate every single facet of it, but obviously it worked out to an incredible degree in game number 1, and especially Froggy thriving in that one got our MVP vote. But on the other side of things, obviously somebody had to take that thrashing, and Genius Esports did not take it super well. So I don't even want to ask what happened because it seemed like they were just getting bullied across the map as soon as the snowball started from the side of Saigon Buffalo. So let's instead talk about what do they do in game 2. Where I asked you what the avenue was for them to win. It feels like that's even more clamped off. Do you see anybody that gave you any faith that could potentially give us a more interesting game 2, maybe a game 3, Tim?
No.
Elaborate.
It's I mean, like we talked about Froggy and BJ, the mid jungle though, right? I mean, the position that probably looked the best was coated, but considering this is one of the worst isolated top lane matchups in the game, like there are a few matchups as bad as this matchup, especially for our matchups. He didn't look great in the matchup because he should have stomped it harder. And then I think the player we haven't talked about was Shogun, and specifically on this Aphelios. I felt like every Aphelios ulti thrown was a massive 3-4 man ultimate, changing teamfights left, right, and center. Yes, the mid jungle duo played great, but it was also Shogun just being the better AD carry consistently. So how does GE win? Maybe they get an early game AD carry, some teamfight AD carry. I really don't know, honestly.
And on the other side, G did have some hope. Yijin got 3 bot ganks off, but they just didn't get used. Samira had 5 kills, but it didn't matter.
Yeah, honestly, the only thing I feel like Genius did that game was make Taki look mediocre, which is hard to do, but Taki was also dying a good amount. Now, in fairness, Taki also had some good engages, some good deflections, things like that. But if you look at his KDA, you look back and you're like, Taki was garbage this game. Like he was terrible, but they did ruin his stat line for anybody who did not watch that first game of the series. As we're jumping into game number 2's draft, you're seeing already the adaption Pantheon taken off the board and Aphelios now allowed to the side of Saigon. We're not getting all 6 ADC bans, but the Sivir and the Callista also taken off the board. Zeri still available, as well as things like the Draven and the Lucian. Lucian getting removed to make sure that that's not going to go to Slayer either.
Yeah, we could see Zeri first pick, but I think it's a very risky thing to do actually, because you could be Draven on, and playing Zeri in a bad matchup, if you're the worst team, especially, can be very, very rough, because your mid jungle duo is probably already losing no matter what you do, specifically because Saigon is also red side, so they can counter pick mid lane. And if you put yourself into a Zeri position, then you're suddenly losing bot, you're losing mid, and the game is immediately over. And so they're deciding to go for an Ahri, first pick, which of course is already a good part to a strong mid-jungle duo, and they're trying to maybe match that, but Froggy could answer with something like the Lissandra, or again a Vex, because Vex used to be a good champion, into Ahri specifically.
I'm so confused here. Ahri was let go last draft, and now you think it's a first pick when Zeri and Yuumi are both open, and again, Zeri Yuumi is open, SGB. You could just pick it, but we have Vi locked in, which, again, there's a lot of good junglers up. Vi is on that second tier where you don't expect to see it this early with this few bans. Zeri is just being ignored.
Yeah.
And I like it. I think actually the team that picks Zeri here loses, because Zeri is too lane weak. I don't think you can actually get her through the lane with how explosive the last game was and how focused both teams are on those skirmishes. Yes, there's always the risk that you give the Zeri random 3 kills, but really, Zeri is not bringing anything to the table, so I am much more scared of the Draven pick coming in, and with Morgana being locked in, that could be Morgana Draven into Vi Galio. No, we don't pick Zeri here, man. No, okay. So GE has lost because they have a losing mid-jungle duo, and they're now gonna get absolutely ass-clapped in bot lane.
Now, the question obviously comes that, have we seen Shogun's Draven this split? I'm trying to remember.
I don't think so.
I think it would be his first Draven from
I
the top of my head.
Yeah, I think it would. I can't remember a specific game. If he's played it, it's definitely only been once, maybe twice. As, Morgana does get grabbed up, just to make sure that you've got a little bit of protection from the Galio and the Vi on the bottom side of the map, which is kind of cool to see, at least a little bit of adaptation. Try to give some protection to the Zeri to make sure she's just not going to get CC'd to death.
You could also now for Saigon actually just go Jinx, for example, or like leave the AD carry pool open, because any AD carry is winning into Zeri, and you already have very strong mid-jungle duo, so enabling hyper carry through your mid-jungle duo is completely possible, and then suddenly also the late game win condition for GE just goes away, and Morgana, yes, gives you some protection, but I don't think Morgana is actually a useful champion, so we have to see how she finds impact in the game.
I think we're missing the fact that this also reeks of a Taki Vi support draft. Like, it just will. We're missing that the champion pool has been expected for a while, so I'm
Senna's
just saying
open,
there.
So it could be Vi Senna, which would be
sick.
Yeah, it would really be sick, honestly.
I mean, at the moment, the issue is, where Yuumi? Please, you even have Gwen who loves it, so both sides could pick it now.
It also feels like it's pretty decent in the Morgana, right? Morgana Q is too slow to really stop you from going into your AD carry again. You're basically untouched, and it's not like Morgana is like a strong laner at all. If you don't land Q, and it's not great, and you can also take easily cleanse on the AD carry because you have to combat summon. So actually, I really would like the Yuumi from SGB because I feel like it could be a lane-winning Yuumi. Oh boy.
See, okay, if we pick Senna, what are we expecting for bottom side? Because I feel like all three of the champions currently above the Senna could absolutely be in that bottom lane role alongside Shogun. But they could also just pick something else completely. They could go like Tom Kench, something like that, and make it a very boring bottom side lane. As you get a little bit of licking at the chops right now for Mr. Yowei, who's waiting to cast for game number 2.
I'm ready for chaos. Whatever's going to support with this, it's going to be chaos. I mean, they could actually show Eddie how you play Lee Sin and the Senna Lee Sin. I'd like that.
Okay.
Yeah.
And you just have Galio, Vi, Gwen, and Lee Sin. Just the enemy ADC.
We're just sacking bot lane?
We're
just giving bot lane over? It is Yijin Morgana jungle? That's
I mean,
cool,
if they actually go Aatrox here, this means the Morgana is going jungle. What? Nah, that
cool,
isn't possible.
Yijin, cool, okay, sick.
Nah,
okay.
I mean, GE just doesn't want to win that, do they? Like, there's no way you ever, like, nah.
Is this top Graves? Is this top Kench? Is this Morg jungle? Like, what is happening? I'm so lost.
I mean, my guess is it's Morgana, it's Tom Kench top, Morgana support, Graves jungle, and you have two losing lanes and an Ahri that isn't really winning into mid lane, and yeah.
Dang it. I was hoping better.
We have a candidate for draft of the split, and bear in mind SGB already had more jungle Shyvana mid. This one, both teams have accepted the chaos. So, what was the record we had to break for most kills? I think it's 57 in the game. That's the aim this game. That's the aim.
By the way, Taki is playing Senna support and Shogun is playing Ashe AD carry, so that's probably a farming Ashe. So, that's not an Ashe support.
It is. The other thing is, I think they were contemplating the possibility of Draven top as the counter to Graves for a little bit of time, which is a huge pick. But they didn't know Graves was going top, so they couldn't lock it. So they go for the base Ashe, which is so upsetting to me that we almost got what probably would have ended up either Hosman taking it and it would have been Gwen in bot lane, or Taki taking it top lane, like the Draven, and then putting elsewhere, which is crazy. We get 2 wild drafts again, guys. First off, who wins? Second, do we break the kill record? Those are my 2 questions for both of you, really quick.
I don't think we're breaking the kill record. I think Saigon should win. I think their bot side is really strong, but I'm honestly, I mean, those drafts are beyond me. I have no idea what's going on.
Yeah, I think we're in season 13 with this draft. I think we're in the wrong year. And SGB, it's Froggy Galio, and Froggy's playing well, so SGB.
All right. I will throw this one caveat in, which is that Froggy on Galio is my least favorite of his champions that he roams with, because they always force him out of lane. He always has like 6 CS a minute, and he does oftentimes end up being in a bad situation just because of the lane. So if things don't go perfect, things will be bad. But it's not our job to do any more analysis because we're into live game. So Milky and Yolway will be here to guide you through this wonderful, wonderful experience we're bound to have here.
Yolway, did you hear that? He thinks we're going to guide them through this game.
Well, I'm not even sure if I want to try.
Coded bad. I'm sorry. I almost cursed him. Coded bad.
Thank you very much for that, Robert. Yolway, I do have a few fun stats for you.
Okay,
so,
shoot away.
How many games do you think Taki has played on Senna?
Ooh, I think he's played it before. 2?
Incorrect. It's 1. Do you want to guess how many of those 1 games he won?
None.
None, correct. Now, do you also want to guess how many games Shogun has played on Ashe?
Oh. I think Taki played Ashe, and he played some Seraphine Ashe stuff. Maybe 4? I don't know.
1.
1? Oh.
Do you want to guess if he won that game?
Probably not.
He did not win that game. Very good your way. What's the relevance of this? Not really much. I just thought it was a fun stat about how little both of these players have played.
Hey, so one loss streak is gonna get broken. Either Saigon Buffalo's in streak on these champions in bot lane, or Genius Esports 10-game losing streak. So yeah, it's definitely a positive experience for either side.
And it's also Coty going back to playing these lane-dominant top laners, because we alluded to it a little bit in Game 1, how we've been seeing Coty playing a lot of the weak side top laners like the Gnar, the Gangplank, and now we're starting to see him playing those more lane-dominant champions again, the likes of the Fiora and the Graves.
Now, you know how much I hate Graves, but I actually gave Coated special permission to play Graves. I think it was in winter back then, because he was actually smurfing every single game on Graves in his team fights. He had some amazing triple, quadra kills and team fights where he came from the side and played basically Assassin Graves and then also transitioned it into Bruiser later on. So he definitely knows how to play this champion. It's one of those specialty champions that might get thwarted because early gang from BJ.
And I don't think there is much that Coty can do here. He's doing a lot of damage onto Harsmed, but BJ flashing over the wall, and it was so needed as well because Harsmed almost died.
That was slick though. He angled that perfectly. That's a flash you can miss, definitely, especially combined with Q. That's not an easy thing to do. That was really, really nicely done from BJ. He has practiced his Vi mechanics.
In fairness to Coated as well, not much Coty can do there. He played that about as perfectly as he could, but BJ stepping up massively. Our two mid lane is relatively low, as Slater is forced to pop the cleanse to avoid being rooted down for too long. Otherwise, a couple of Taki autos might have sent him to the grave.
Please, Taki, stop cancelling auto attacks. It makes me sick. But, by the way, do you know what Senna players like even more than playing with Tom Kench?
Is it the animation when they cancel an auto attack?
Yeah, no. But playing against the Tom Kench is pretty good. Because
Okay.
3 swords, woo!
Oh, true, actually, yeah. And when
All
you're
the time.
playing against a Zeri as well that has such low range, things get very nice. Blazes, come on, buddy. I thought you were going to
Okay,
flash over that
Milky.
wall for the play. Yes.
You just said Zeri has low range. I need to intercept, because that is very, very incorrect. Zeri's base range on her Q is 725. That is very, very high. It's not
I
a
don't know
low
what
range champion.
725 is as a range. Like, you need to give me...
Okay, Caitlyn has 650. Senna
Wait,
has 600.
what?
Yes.
She's got more range than Caitlyn level
Her
1.
Q does, yeah. Her normal auto attack, like her spell auto attack, which is the auto attack, doesn't. But the Q is 725, but I think it's model to model, so it's a little bit less. But she's one of the highest ranged AD carries in the game, so...
Okay, allow me to rephrase your way. When you're playing against an ADC like Zeri that does no damage in the early game, and means that you can step up like an animal, then you can get away with poking. There you go. Is that better?
Yeah, that's much better.
Okay, cool. Thank you for clarifying.
Yeah, no, Zeri's definitely... Oh, Coated, what have you done?
No.
He does a flash, though.
Coach is like, you're not the jungler, you're a mid laner. And Froggy says yes, and you're dead.
I have a fun stat for you. Or a fun quiz for you. So if you look at Coated's first 2 interactions here, he died twice in the early game. Can you tell me what summoner spells he used?
Wait, what summoner spells Coated uses?
Mm-hmm.
What, as in this game or just
in this game?
generally? What, am I allowed to look or not?
Yeah.
Wait.
You're allowed to look.
Wait, he's got Flash and Teleporter.
Yeah, but what summoner spells did he use in these interactions, right?
Oh, none of them.
Yeah, that's true. So,
Okay.
I know you're an LEC enjoyer, right? So, once again, I'm going to make this little comparison. What player does he remind you of?
What player does Coated remind me of?
Yeah,
Well, I
dying
think
with Flash Up
comparison-
twice before level 6.
Oh, who dies with Flash Up before level 6 in the LEC? I don't actually know. Oh my god, Froggy!
Froggy's a psychopath. Holy shit!
You know what, Coated? I can't even blame you for being caught out by that. Genies are later on gonna watch that clip and think, holy shit! That's how Froggy got to the top lane. Also,
I love
dead
Froggy.
again.
I love Froggy. Hey, he used his flash though. So finally
Hey,
used
good
his
job.
flash. Nice.
So which top laner in the LEC?
It's not the
use
top
their
laner.
flash?
It's still humanoid. It's always humanoid.
Oh, it's a humanoid.
Every time I
okay.
reference LEC,
I
it's
thought it
humanoid.
was top restricted.
Because it's fun to
Fair enough.
reference humanoid. Oh my god, okay, Froggy just earned all the MVP points. It doesn't even matter what happens in the rest of the game. That's the chattest move I've ever seen anyone do.
The confidence on this guy is ridiculous. Even though getting caught out in the river and Genius, Froggy looking for places. Is this your way? And I'm always going to call this early on. I'm not one of those casters who likes to be like,
Yes.
caster cursing it by mentioning it. Is this a potential perfect game?
Oh, perfect game. I thought you were saying, is this over? No. SGB is
obviously it's over.
physically not capable of playing a perfect game. It's never gonna happen with these 5 players. You could put this team into C games, and they would win in 10 minutes, but they would also die 5 times at least. Until I see SGB actually play a game with less than 1 kill on the other side, I cannot believe they will ever perfect game anyone with this roster.
Right. Also, Beast, you know that World Prep document? Make sure you get that Clever Froggy in for it.
Or maybe not. We need it.
Maybe not. Yeah, we need to catch the other regions out. No one knows about this Froggy play. It's only when he does it against some team at Worlds that we're like, did you know Froggy did this in the VCS, by the way?
What a move. And now Hasmid just sits in top lane, has lost the early laning phase into Coated, and he's 3-0. Even CS, but his jungler and his mid laner made sure that Hasmid was eating well today, because, yeah, well, they just spam gang top lane into the Grace. I mean, I already love SGB as a team, but they also punish Graves picks, so now I love them even more. Just see Graves in top lane, insta-gank him so he's useless for the rest of the game. You could not make me any happier, SGB. Thank you very much. Oh, we might have another fight here. Yijin is finally level 6, so level 6 Morgana. It's walking up, slowly, menacingly, and now flashes away. Lucky.
Saigon Buffalo looking for a play. But Genius are wise to it and decide, you know what? I'm just going to burn my flash. I'm out of here. I don't want to be giving any more kills over to Saigon Buffalo just yet. We're already 2k goal behind.
He flashed away from his center Q. Oof.
Center Q's can hurt your way. You should know that.
I know. Well, it's not going to kill you. Hasmit is going to kill you.
Yeah. Is Hasmit going to die here to Yijin? Is a question.
Ooh, he might. How does Yijin's ultimate interact with Gwen W?
Ooh, I would say.
Can you activate it?
I think.
That's a very interesting question. I have no idea.
I think if it's already you know what? I think even if it's tethered, I don't think the CC will go off if you're not inside the W. Yeah. That's what I reckon.
But what? So you're probably close enough anyway to activate it, right? I'm not actually sure.
No, I think it's slightly longer, the outrange.
So then it's a question if you can actually even press R. Or if you press R, does nothing happen, but you still get the cooldown?
Oh, that's fun. I
This
wonder.
is not
Oh
fun
well,
for Coated.
Coated has died. Coated has not had fun. He's 0-5. What were you saying before, Yulway, about Coated is a champion that you allowed to play?
Yeah, maybe not this. Maybe not this play. It's a little bit of a Camken experience for our long-time viewers. No, Coated, but why? Just stay under tower, my boy.
BJ has been nutty with these vault breakers. And then cease and desist. Nothing Coated can do. Coated has been hard bullied.
The perfect game. Taki, run!
Oh, dearie me. Slater picks one up.
You.
He ends the dreams for Saigon Buffalo.
Oh, what?
He ends up dying anyway from a burn? I don't even know what it was that killed him.
Minions?
Maybe? I don't think I saw the minions autoing him or minions hitting him.
The minions looked friendly. I don't know. Oh, BJ found B up. He wants more blood, and Blazes is here. I'm not sure if he wants to be here, though.
I don't know if he does. He's looking for Shogun. Surely he will land this. A charm forced to flash out of the hero's entrance and now just gets run down under tower. The tower that we were speaking of will fall as well. And Saigon Buffalo just get another kill.
No, not again. 140 gold. This is the biggest schooling and team play I've ever seen a team give another team. Mike,
I'm kind of curious here, Yulway. I don't want to watch this because this was Saigon Buffalo's hopes and dreams dying.
Yeah.
But
how does... Yeah, it's the minions. Look at the minions.
Yes.
Bam. Nope, there it is.
Oh, so there's 3.
Fetch.
Okay. I
Thought
think
it
if
was
he
the big
stops autoing them and just runs, they de-aggro him.
He probably wants to lifesteal a little bit. He's hoping the lifesteal's enough, but yeah, it could have been the better option there. It's always hard to say. Taki reluctantly taking the cannon minion. As Senna, you always look at the cannon and you're like, the soul is about 50 gold. This cannon minion gives me about 60 gold, so which do I actually want to take? It's a bit of a weird choice. That's why you always want to play support Senna, because then you don't have to make these choices, but...
Yeah. Now... I asked a question about perfect game. Oh, Slater. There's not much you can do.
Yeah, nice.
Oh, the sidestep.
Nice.
You know what? Credit Slater. A credit to Slater there. So my next question is your way. Do you think we get a new fastest game of the split?
Oh, wow, we're looking at a 7k gold lead at 12 minutes. Yeah. I'll just say yes. Yeah, they do have dive potential. They have really good dive potential. They have really good siege with 2 long-range AD carries and an insanely strong side laner. So they actually have all the elements you need to close out a game quickly. Taki, no. Oh, good dodge, but I think he's dead anyway.
Sidestep is clean. Dark Binding not going to land, but Taki is eaten up, gobbled up, and sent back to his fountain.
Yeah, that's unfortunately very oftentimes the Senna fate. But now his team is here to avenge him. Senna a little bit annoyed that she can't participate in these fights, but at least they avenge her and get a kill back instantly.
Did you see the chain CC on Blazes? Man just could not press a button or move.
Yeah, I'm telling you, this is the biggest schooling and team play I've ever seen a team give another team. They are just playing perfectly together. Slater, can he sidestep again? This is a Hunt Summer moment from Last Worlds. Let's see if he can do it.
Slater's trying to kite, but you've got nowhere to kite. He goes over the wall, and Froggy's just waiting. It's an instant cleanse of Slater. He's trying to get to the blast cone, but BJ says, no, I operate the blast cone. And in the end, it's Taki of all people who picks up the kill.
It's so nice of the team to give the kill over to Taki, telling him, yeah, you're a good ADC. You actually get a few kills as well. Very nice. And yeah, we're looking at a 12-2 kill score right now. Honestly, I think the stomp is too big of a stomp for us to get to the kill record, but we might get to the fastest game record. 14 minutes on the clock. Second Rift Herald, I think, is probably crucial for that one. We need second Herald, the crashing into bot inhibitor, and then simultaneously Hasmet trying to push top lane. I think that's probably the easiest way to get a lot of towers and get into the enemy base quickly. I'm not sure if Saigon Buffalo wants to, because last game it looked like they were having way too much fun. So maybe they're just going to troll around a little bit.
Is the kill record for, most kills picked up by one team? Oh, poor Coated. He's just going to get locked down and taken down. So
112 goals.
Is it for one team, or is it the combined kills for both teams?
Oh, that's a good question. I think those are two different records.
Okay.
Might also be in the... Nah, it's probably not in the same game. There were a few games where teams had like 20 to 0 kills or something. I don't know.
Froggy, that's the wrong side of the tower.
He doesn't care.
Yeah, he's just bullying.
Does he look like he cares about anything? Remember what he did at 5 minutes?
Look at that. Look at that man. He is a Chad. He's literally playing... Okay, we don't talk about that, but he's literally a Chad. He doesn't care about anything right now.
He hasn't CS'd in a few minutes, because why would you?
Yeah, but it's Froggy. You give your CS over to Hasmed.
No,
Speaking
come on,
of...
guys.
Oh, it's Froggy. He's in the top lane now. He's everywhere, and it's another kill for Hasmed. 6-0.
This is so sad.
Don't lie, you're loving this. No, look, it's Froggy. He's in the mid lane now. He's everywhere, and here comes Taki once again.
Look at Taki. It's the ganking center.
Oh, that was a nice Justice Punch. He goes into the Dark Binding, but out of the charm, BOB will pop the shield. Will it keep him alive? Oh, I think he's going to burn. Is he going to die? Everfrost lands. So much damage. Goes Golden Gideon flashing forward with the Soul Shackles. Not going to be able to root Taki into place. And Saigon Buffalo will survive.
Yijin, you have Blue Smite available. Just chase him. You had the center there easily. Maybe even Shogun. Come on, Yijin. Why are you playing safe for? The game is over. Just go for kill.
He's been put and traumatized so badly in this game that he's just scared of everything right now.
Yeah. Coated.
Coated, what are you doing over there, buddy? That's like way too deep. You don't even have priority to be in your own jungle, let alone Saigon Buffalo's jungle.
Very successful Milky Cereal cosplay, I have to admit.
Excuse me, what?
True, you're right. He still needs 4 deaths to actually complete that mission.
You know what, I don't think I like you anymore. I feel like
it.
That's a nice Dark Binding. He goes golden, here comes Taki. Surely not going to be able to keep being alive. The killing's actually kind of disgusting. If BOB dies here after this pick, that is going to be disturbing.
Disturbing is the only word you can use. How is BJ alive? Yes,
oh
Taki,
my God,
yes. Eugene has no... Oh, might be able to kill him. No mana, though.
You need to be able to sidestep this next Q. He's
Taki
playing this.
Easy clap.
Rocky gets the outplay. And Saigon Buffalo are crashing on into the base. We're
they
not
have
even 18 minutes in. Rift Herald has been dropped down as well. The previous quickest game was 23 minutes away. And Saigon Buffalo are going to do it pre-18 minutes against Genius Esports. And Saigon Buffalo will take the 2-0. And they'll take the fastest game record, not just of the VCS, but of the whole goddamn world.
Let's go, Saigon Buffalo. And the game even cuts away before 18 minutes, so it's a true sub 18-minute victory. The Nexus died at 1750, I think. The fastest game I've seen since maybe MSI?
SEA games.
Oh, well, fair enough, yeah, if you count those.
But that doesn't count, that doesn't count.
What a stomp and what a fun composition, my god. Saigon Buffalo had way too much fun today. You can't really say the same for Genius, but hopefully they enjoyed some of their moments. Coated, I would send Coated to therapy after this one. This was rough for him. That's for sure.
As we like to say sometimes, Saigon Buffalo had a hot date to get to.
Yeah. What time is it over in Vietnam?
God.
It's barely 8 p.m. I think.
Plenty of time to make it over to the cinema or restaurant, wherever they're planning on going. Sorry, let me just have a quick check. Yeah, all our analysts are still there. They're all back from their breaks or whatever. I thought that maybe, they thought the game would last a little bit longer. So with that, we're going to throw to our wonderful analyst desk to break down the game. And guys, you don't even have much of a game to break down, so good luck.
Welcome back to the VCS English Analyst Desk. I'm going to kick off our desk in a very milky fashion with a statistic for you gents, because I went looking just as fast as I could.
Same.
In Worlds qualifying regions right now, this was the fastest game by over 2 minutes compared to every other Worlds qualifying region in the world.
That is not exactly
right now.
true.
Well, that's not exactly true. How do you mean?
Okay, so I have a list of all short games. So there is technically Champions 2014 Winter, which is 8 minutes.
Oh no,
and 20
I meant
seconds.
this year. My bad. I didn't mean.
Oh, this year.
Okay,
I
only got this year. This year.
Because I actually looked up. I looked up
Yeah.
of all time, and there are actually a decent amount of teams that are, or games that are quicker. I mean, yeah, but it is like even comparatively to like historic games on a comparative level, like the shortest game in a competitive region in recent memory is 13 minutes, which is Vivictus Esports, the female team that was playing in LCL, which is, I wouldn't even compare that, but because those aren't two teams that were at all competitive, probably the closest one is then, I'm not even sure what the closest one is. It's like around 16 minutes, so it's not far off from like the fastest games of all time.
Yeah, just the fact that they were like, okay, the best way to put it honestly is just piss smurfing today over top of their opponents, which is just ridiculous to have to say about two teams that are supposed to be at the absolute top level of competition. Speaks to the level that Saigon specifically played at inside of this series, right, Bees?
Yeah, I was close. I was really close. I knew a record would get broken. I thought it was the most kills. It was the shortest game. I nearly got it. That was complete annihilation.
It truly was. Game 2 was it was insane from them to be able to have that type of play. The fact that we had like a number of different circumstances where every player had their own individual thing. Again, I think the best way to say it also was that they did look like they were having a ridiculous amount of fun today. I mean, Froggy with that one roam to me was the perfect epitome of just like Saigon actually was doing anything that they wanted and nobody could tell them any different on a day like today. Walking into playoffs now, like we're coming into our final week, we're expecting playoff potential run here from the side of Saigon Buffalo. We've seen a couple of teams really pop off. Who is spiking the hardest at the moment as of our final week of play?
If you asked me this before this series, I would have said GAM.
Yeah.
And then Team Secret and then Saigon. I was the one that was against the trend saying Saigon third. But I think I've been converted. I think Saigon's probably the second best team on form right now.
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's I think still GAM. They still. I mean, the recent loss was decently close between Saigon, and I see a chance for them to win against GAM, even in a best of 5. But I can't give it to them yet. They still have to prove it in playoffs, I think. But for me, I think this has cemented their place as the second best team to me. And now I think it's an uphill battle for Team Secret to really show that they have what it takes to this time make it to international tournament. Because we remember in the playoffs in spring, actually, it was Team Secret versus Saigon Buffalo for that second spot that qualified you to MSI. And in the end, in a best of 5 series, in 5 games, it was Saigon taking them down. So I think it is again Secret having to show that they are now the better team.
Okay, so I'll give you this question as well, because I'll point out the teams that are currently in playoffs and the ones that might make a chance for it. But let's start with just our top 4 at the moment, which is SBTC Esports. They've got a good collection of veterancy, right? Like they've got DNK, they've got DO1, they've got Celebrity, all of whom have been on big stages, Paulette as well. And then they've got their youngster, like top laner, who is an absolute stud, who's playing like a monster and a beast this split, right? You got Team Secret, who came in third last split, took Saigon Buffalo to 5 games, was very close, very consistent team, currently sitting at the top of the standings, and has players that are not necessarily outside of the realm of World's qualification. You've got Artifacts, you have players that have been on bigger stages before, but I don't think quite the level of SBTC or GAM. And then you got Saigon Buffalo, who are these players who only just went to their first international tournament. I think we had a stat earlier that it was their 4th split. Which 2 teams are you sending to Worlds if you had to pick them? Like, if they come to you tomorrow and the VCS is just like, you're picking the 2 teams, which 2 are you putting through? I guess I'll start with Tim and then we'll go to Beast.
I think GAM is a no-brainer. I think they have, as an organization and also as players, right, some of the most experience in the VCS. I mean, especially Levi comes to mind. You're hard-pressed to find a team that you would rather have at Worlds. I can also say, speaking for Carrix here, as long as Levi isn't picking up the Kazakhs, then I think we're good on that one. But the other team that I would actually send is Saigon, because they've actually shown up on MSI. They went top 6, and especially the bot lane that had looked a bit shaky at times. And I mean, it was basically Shogun's rookie split. And he went up against the other like huge rookie, right, in Gumayushi. I think that was the deciding factor for me. Was like he went up against that Gumayushi carrier bot lane, the best bot lane in the world. They should have stomped everybody, and well, they solo killed them. Not once, not twice, but thrice in one game. And I think that shows you how much potential it is in the roster. Even though I'm not a Froggy believer, I don't think he can. He's still a good player, and he still fits well in that team. They also have a Hazmet and a BJ who can perform very nicely and have done so in spring, but couldn't really show it on MSI. So I think they still have a lot to prove, and I would love to see them there.
And I agree, GAM and SGB, but I have a slightly different reason why. As much as SGB, that's their first international tournament, they are, as a team, the 3rd most experienced internationally. The only other players in the league that have more than 10 international games are Ron OP and Yijin. And Yijin's definitely not going, as we saw that game. And Ron OP and Hubert aren't even sure for which players playing support. So even though it's only one international tournament for SGB, they are the most experienced team.
And it's, I don't know, it's a tough one because we started this split in such a weird position where Team Secret and SBTC Esports kind of jumped off to this exciting start. We were like, hey, we've got 2 new competitors jumping to the block, and yet we always come back to these 2 teams where it seems like there are dynasty teams. We love GAM. They're amazing. They're the number 1 team in the VCS for a good reason. And Saigon Buffalo, to me, has been the main character ever since they swapped their roster and got out of relegations as the number 2 team behind BTS. And we've seen how that progression has really come in such a far way for this team. My final question, just because I think it's worthwhile giving a little bit of onus over to Genius Esports, because they have now dropped to guaranteed being inside of the relegation tournament. Do you see this team getting relegated in its current state?
In its current state, yes. They will have time to go, okay, VCS is over. We messed up VCS. Let's focus on VCSB. So they could show up to VCSB and stay up, but if they play today, they're down. They're gone.
I mean, I see a good chance for them. One, you might just... I mean, you have Dante in backhand, and no matter how bad we think he might be, I think he's still better than Yijin if you're going into relegation, because from what I've heard, Yijin is not the most mentally stable player, especially if the split isn't going well. So you might have a good shot there to also... maybe not improve your roster individually, but from everything I've seen and heard from VCSB, it's not like VCSB teams are absolutely insane and the players coming from there are smurfing on you. It's more, you have to stay mentally strong, you have to play a decent game, and then you're going to be fine as a VCS team. And I think Genius might have to do 1 or 2 roster swaps to really make sure that the mental is staying strong, especially I think that jungle position will be very important for them.
Yeah, having Dante ready to go, I think Dante and Ikigai both on Team Flash last split were decent standouts for those rosters, and so it'd be nice to see one of them get another chance inside of the VCS or to defend the spot here for Geniuses when the time comes. One way or another, we're not quite done on the day. Obviously, our first series is in the books in basically record time or just about record time, especially for this split, not just here but for anywhere. We have a second series of the day as we're going to have a clash of ex top contenders in what was a fantastic rivalry match in the long term of GAM versus Cerberus Esports, which does have pretty solid, kind of standings implications coming into the end of the split. So we'll be back in 25, 30 minutes, somewhere in that area, and we'll kick off our second series of the day. Stick around.
Welcome back, everyone, to the VCS. We just saw the stomp of the season, the stomp of the year, maybe the stomp of all VCS. 17-minute and 40-second domination from the side of Saigon Buffalo. But all of that has to come to an end because we have our second series of the day to cover, which is GAM taking on Cerberus. So, you know what, Tim? I'm going to go to you first. This should be a 2-0 for GAM, but I want to talk about some of the positives for Cerberus and where you think, if Cerberus were to win, which players do you want to be seeing stepping up in order for Cerberus to accomplish that?
So first step is we're playing our Vietnamese players in top and jungle, please. That would be a very good start. We take the Koreans and we put them back to Korea. And I think that would be a very good start. And then Yalo just needs a firing mid laner, control mage, something like that. He's really not the roaming type, I feel like. Ari is, I think, one exception. And then for once, I think Artemis has to get back to winter form. I mean, Artemis, I think, was by far the best player. I think everybody agreed in Winter Split last year. He was the monster, and that monster is still missing. It's MIA and has been for nearly the entire year now. And I think if you want to start stepping up, if you want to start, taking the long trek to Worlds as a player like that, then you have to start here. I think that's the last chance you're really getting.
And Beast, going to you, I'm sure there are a million different scenarios that could happen in this game. Is the one scenario where Cerberus wins? Is that with Yado playing his trusty Ari?
Yeah, I see a way that they win being just Artemis carry. I don't really see it coming from Yado, and yeah, just Artemis has to pop off in this game.
An Artemis pop off. We've been seeing a lot of bans in the VCS, particularly in our last series between Saigon Buffalo and SAE, where we saw 6 ADCs being banned away. We know that Artemis has a very deep champion pool, Tim. We've even seen him playing the Samira, which is what Genius rather unsuccessfully tried to play. Are there any champions that you would like to see Artemis pulling out that may not be quite, high priority right now?
I always feel like when Artemis is in a position to pick something more of meta, when he's not like, well, this is the best champion in the game, and his coach forces him to play it, I feel like he always takes very bad decisions in what he plays. I remember his Samira games. Like every time this guy blocks on Samira, it's the worst possible game to do it. Like he's always playing against high range, good disengage, and he's just absolutely useless. Even in Winter Split, we had I think 1-2 Samira games who absolutely went badly for him. So I just hope that he gets one of the standard picks, get him in a Phadios, get him maybe even a Jinx, or one of the more aggressive options in Draven in Kalista. I think that's the way you want to go, because when he starts thinking for himself, usually good things do not happen in draft.
On the other hand, for that,
sorry,
the one game that Samira was played by Artemis it was versus GAM. It was a win, and he went 9-0-6 and dominated the game. So as much as he does often pick weird things in weird scenarios, I do think Samira is one of those big pop-off champions that I want to see from Artemis.
Okay, and kind of in a similar situation to Saigon Buffalo, where the last time Saigon Buffalo lost the series prior to their loss to GAM was against Genius, who was the team they were facing. And it's the same for GAM. The last time GAM lost the series was against Cerberus back in week 3 of Summer Split. And as you mentioned, Beast, on that Samira that eventually went deathless. Let's talk about Style, though, because I think that Style has become an ADC with Celebrity and SBTC starting to look rather shaky. Style now has picked up the spot of being the best ADC in the split, and I want to know if that's a statement that you both agree with, and I'll go to you first on that, Tim.
Yeah, I think looking at the games from today from Saigon, I think he's gonna have another contender with Shogun coming up into playoffs. But currently, I think I would probably put him in first, especially how GAM have been looking. Because I mean, I can only agree. And again, I think Shogun has the potential to take that spot, but currently, I think it's Style inhibiting it.
So, what about you, Beast?
we have talked about Style versus Eddie quite a bit behind the scenes. We are Eddie enjoyers, but the consensus at the moment definitely is that Styles first.
Eddie, really.
Oh no! You know what? Let's not have this on broadcast, okay? We'll move on to our support role because otherwise we're going to be here all game long and we'll never end up throwing to the casters. We're going to move over to our support role, and I think this is very clear. B is the best support in the league right now. The man can roam on everything. You could turn him into the Gromp, and you'd be seeing him roaming around the map, just doing ridiculous stuff.
Yeah, overall, the GAM bot lane, I think, has been one of the main facilitators to really bring them back into the season. Because, I mean, Kati has been looking better. I mean, he looked absolutely horrendous in the beginning. I think we talked about him being one of the worst, if not the worst, mid laner for a time in the league, and that was competing with players like 2T, which is not easy to do from his perspective. But I think GAM have really found themselves in. I think being around the map, from what I've heard, and it was probably also said on broadcast before, is that he was actually ill in the hospital and really wasn't able to play on a high level. Now with him back, it looks better.
Yeah, all hail B. Roaming Yumi just because he can. You mentioned Gromp. There was that LPL clip with Gromp somehow in mid lane because of pathing. That's
Did it involve a
B.
Tilia ult by any chance?
He can be anywhere on the map. There doesn't have to be a good reason for it. He can be top at 4 minutes just because it's B.
And then kind of switching over to the other side of the map and we look towards Ron OP, I remember back in Winter Split, we were talking about, the holy trinity of supports in the VCS. We were looking at B, we were looking at Taki, we were looking at Ron OP as, these three fantastic supports. And now this split, it feels like Ron OP has fallen off to the extent that we're seeing Hubert playing a lot of games for Cerberus, when back in Winter, that would have been something completely unthinkable to him.
Yeah, I think if you told us in Winter a lot about this bot lane, then I think we would have looked at you confused and be like, how is Artemis not dominating the league for the next 10 years? How is not Ron OP? I mean, we always talked about Artemis so much, but I think it was really the bot lane both stepping up, and now seeing how Artemis continues to play. I think it was Ron OP also carrying a lot of the laning phases and then finding ways out of the bot lane to date the bot lane pressure they had and transition it onto the map. And now with Artemis not really bringing much to the table, he's not really able to do that. He isn't winning the lanes for his AD carry anymore, and he isn't putting down the pressure on the map. And I would like to see that, or I would like to say it's different when he's not in the team, in the lineup, but it doesn't really change. I think with both supports, the problems are similar. They're not really that monster bot lane anymore. They're not winning every matchup. They're not putting the pressure on the entire map. So I think if you really wanna see somebody stepping up, I could see Pan and Drakta making a huge difference for them, and I think that's the only way they really have a shot at winning here.
Well, we are heading into Pix and Ban, so we'll be seeing who's playing in the top lane and the jungle for the side of Cerberus. But B, straight away, that Ahri is getting banned away from Yado.
Yeah, that's what you've got to do versus Cerberus. 30% win rate when he's not on Ahri, positive win rate when he is. It's the ban that you have to do. More interestingly is we're seeing Poppy and Draven. So one of the big ADCs is definitely up, maybe all three. Okay, Kallista's banned, but Sivir and Zeri both up.
It should be a Sivir first pick. I think for Cerberus it was thinking, okay, do we want to take out the Yuumi or do we want to take out the Sivir? And in the end, they decided, okay, Yuumi is probably good with Sivir and the Zeri, so they took that one out. And it's not Sivir first pick, it's actually the Wukong takeaway. Also by far the strongest jungler right now. And honestly, please pick Sivir over Zeri. Thank you. I mean, that would have been confusing, honestly.
Yeah, correct. Everything so far during this draft, GAM have to pick up the Zeri and their mid laner to counter Talia. We did see Vex earlier. I don't think we'll see something that okay.
Okay. Well, we got the Vex.
So that was me getting corrected pretty quickly, wasn't it? Yeah,
I
Vex
mean,
Wukong sounds very insanely scary for CES's backline.
Honestly, we haven't seen Vex much, right? I haven't missed Vex like in this week. It wasn't played much, right?
No. This is
so. I think what happened here is that My guess is Saigon and GAM actually scrimmed each other, and they kind of found out that Vex is really good right now, and it works into Taliyah, because it was also picked into Taliyah in the first series, right? So my guess is they actually scrimmed each other, it worked out, and now both teams kind of consider it a good pick, especially for speeding up the game, and I can see it with the current junglers being strong, so I can really see them just finding that out in scrims, and now both of these teams are playing it, because we consider them to be the best two teams, so it would just make sense to scrim each other.
And yeah, I just had a thought. Vex's ult is unstoppable, so the pebbles that usually stop so many engages doesn't stop the Vex.
Yep. So it makes sense, and now we see the Nautilus being locked in. That means a lot of the more defensive options together with the Zeri aren't really available, and it's definitely one of the strongest supports currently. I think you have the best win rate bot lane in theory. I think 70% on the Sivir and 67, I think, on the Nautilus, and on a lot of games. So this is really crazy considering win rates.
Also, that Renata still available, and just to clarify, we've seen 2 games of Vex in the VCS this split, and one of those games was by Froggy in the previous series today between Saigon Buffalo and Genius Esports. But we've had all of our bans coming through, Cerberus rounding out their bans, targeting Bees Alistair, while Gamma targeting Draxar's Vi.
Yeah, it's actually really interesting to see Pantheon's shot up. We saw it last series and we see it banned here, and On comes through. That's a very classic pun pick. So we're going to R5 jungle, so there's a lot of picks that are fringe meta here. We could also see Tuir flex to jungle. We have seen that a couple of times, and then a mid lane counter pick, but there's a lot of options for Cerberus here.
I think what is more interesting right now is gonna be the support for B. I mean, Pyke would definitely be an option, but I'm not sure if Sivir and Nautilus is really a matchup you want to play Pyke into.
Do it.
That sounds a bit bad. Also, I love how B has Exhaust and Ignite. You know, he was feeling the Yuumi already, and he was ready for it on the summoner spells, and it ends up being, I think the logical pick is a Renata. You have a hard engage comp on the other side, so Renata ulti has a good value there. But Sivir Shield can of course block it, and then the rest is not really affected by auto-attacking each other.
Okay, I have to say, it's an illegality that Renata didn't get banned in round 2 there. Renata getting to 5th picks, just no.
Also,
we see Xin as R5, so I definitely like the pick. His R can deny GAM's dive, so very good for protecting Artemis.
Also, small fun fact, Sivir is one of the few champions that with Renata ulti can actually suicide, because the shurikens actually bounce on herself. So yeah, you can actually kill yourself with W.
Wait, what?
Yeah. So if you ricochets, if you attack your allies, the ricochets bounce on you and you can kill yourself in teamfights. That happened to us in training where our Sivir Penta killed her own team.
Wait, what?
Yeah,
No way.
6 item Sivir, and she Penta killed our own team. Yeah.
So very quickly, before I get your thoughts on the game, can the ricochets, will it only bounce between your team members, or will it bounce between your team and the enemy as well?
That's actually something I don't really know, because it was high range, so it could only hit our team. So I actually don't know that. I only know that the ricochets can actually bounce on yourself, and you can kill yourself and your entire team.
Incredible. Well, I don't know who gets a pentakill in that regard. One of the few scenarios where a support can get a pentakill. Very quickly, GAM or Cerberus, I'll go to you first, Beast.
GAM, this draft is really fun.
Yeah,
And
I agree. I think you have a good bot lane, you have the win rate bot lane with Sivir and Nautilus, but I don't think it's going to be enough. I think GAM is more creative, has more options in the game, and I would give it to them.
Okay, and with that, we're going to be heading over to our casting duo, and a man who's not only smarter than me, not only a better host than me, but now has to prove that he's a better play-by-play caster than me. We're, of course, talking about Your Way. Take it away.
Okay. I guess I have to do it all now. No, of course, it's Rebel with me. Rebel stepping into the play-by-play more and more now, and I'm so happy to have him at my side. Rebel, welcome to the caster desk.
Disrespectful, man. Disrespectful. I mean, I already have to carry the burden of being more attractive than Milky, let alone all those other things, and he's just gonna sit here and disrespect me. I command more respect than that, Yo. I demand it.
I'll see to it. I'll see to it that he respects you more next time.
Okay.
We'll,
that's
we'll
good. I don't know.
initiate measures to ensure that.
Yeah, it's bold words coming out of somebody who didn't know what range was walking into today. As
True.
we've actually got a couple of members of Cerberus actually
Whoa!
walking in. As B actually got away with murder right there.
Why
Okay,
did
was
Ronopi
standing-
step to the side there?
He must have just not been paying attention in the slightest. He must have just stepped out of the brush, and that had to be it. Because otherwise, I don't know why he would not have gone for a hook right there on the lane invade. Like, that was the whole intention behind the plan. And yet, there it was. B just gets to walk out for free.
Ooh, that could cost them quite a bit of opportunity, because that early flash on Renata after all the Renata nerfs, she's actually quite a squishy champion. She's now truly just another enchanter, so it's pretty easy to kill her in the early game. Auto attack reset on Sivir, Q, all the damage from Nautilus. At a Drakthar early gank, that's a good opportunity. So that's thwarted now, but he still has to flash him, still might die.
To the bottom side, B is going to go down just as fast as possible. They didn't even need the invade to go over. His style is going to try to turn it onto Artemis. He's going to get locked out by Rono. He stepped back in, and it doesn't happen. Cerberus walk away with 2 kills to kick off the game.
And the whole analyst desk was just set up to talk about the bot lane and how they're not as successful as in Winter Split. Well, they've come to play today, that's for sure. B, well, B hasn't played against Ronopi Artemis in quite some time, so he doesn't know how strong they are and how well they can play together. Instant cleanse on the Ignite, also quite interesting from Artemis there, to make sure they can actually continue the fight, and then almost a double kill, but 2 kills over to Artemis Ronopi.
I'm just dumbfounded about the start to this game already from B. He almost got hooked to start things off inside of that top rush.
He had
and
to
then
make
right
sure.
there, yeah, he did. And then just standing there at the front of the lane trying to harass like he's like Tarek or something, trying to get a stun off to start off the early game alongside the Zeri is just... Man, I don't know what that was, but it's a fantastic... So you can see it's already like 1,000 gold lead from GAM just to kick this game off from that advantage held on the bottom side.
Yeah, and that's what Cerberus wants to look at. I wanted to actually look into the stats that the analyst desk was discussing, because I had the suspicion that maybe Artemis is getting a little bit too much flack.
Yeah.
True, his laning stats aren't as great anymore. That's definitely true, and some of that is also Ronopi not quite hitting the same form as in Winter. But I actually looked at some of his other stats, and he has the highest DPM, by far higher than OG, by the way, which is quite surprising, because OG was literally 1v9ing. He has the highest... what's the number called? The damage share, I believe.
Damage share, yeah.
And he also has the highest gold share. So they definitely still know where their bread is buttered. They know it's all Artemis, and he's still performing. Maybe not quite to the Winter standard, but he's still definitely the hyper carry they want him to be. So that's a start they can work from.
Oh. Okay. Yeah, to me, quite a bit of it has been, it feels actually like Artemis has never really truly picked up Zeri the way that he needed to, but ever since Sivir has been involved, I feel like Artemis has definitely improved playing the Sivir pick and a couple of other things. It feels like the matchup is slowly getting better. And this is the pick that I talked about this on the last time that I was on cast and on desk and such, that I think this is the champion that Artemis should be piloting as much as possible. So when our desk talked about not only the matchup being better, but also this is, to me, comfort for Artemis inside of a matchup like this, inside of any bot lane type thing, is Drakthar kind of just pokes his head into bottom side. He realizes, I think, that Levi was in river, just wants to make sure that there's no potential for any sort of shenanigans to happen on bottom side, as both teams are putting at least a couple of chips into this arena down here, leaving both the solo lanes to their own devices.
In the meantime, top lane is struggling. Pun not really able to get away with a free laning phase in the top lane. He's going to pick up half a wave right now, hitting his tower, so that's a very cool interaction. I like to see that. But Levi's still around, so if Cerberus overextends on this counter push, they might be punished. No flash on Artemis, no cleanse either, so he's under a lot of threat here.
Not dumping W yet either. He saved it until he only had the 3 minions left, so he could try to hold the wave in position pretty well. And I could appreciate that from Artemis, because he thinned it well enough that they can actually hold yet another freeze if they wanted to with the wave where it's at. And I think Levi realized this was an exercise in futility, and so he ends up just leaving, going to take the rest of his camps. It does buy Drakthar a quicker path to top lane if he wants to try to make something happen up here, where Pun, he's piloting the Ornn, but at minimum, if you can set him up for success, maybe against Kiaya, it's a good thing. Kiaya has had some solid performances. Pun has looked rough over the course of the split. He's still this weak side, but he no longer has the ability to just tank anything like he did in Winter. Instead, it seems like he's a little bit out of at least that arena for himself. maybe this is some assistance that Drakthar can provide to the top lane, buy him a little bit of breathing room.
Yeah, I think we're in the calm before the storm, because both mid lane is defeat level 6 now, so it's time to roam, it's time to start these plays. Neither jungler has really found an early gank, and both would have been capable, especially the Jin Zhao, of course, but now, combined with Taliyah roaming potential, combined with Karti on... I mean, Karti was also in contention to be one of the best Vexes in the league. Remember when, in winter he was smurfing every single game on this champion, so it's another really good Vex player coming in here. That's probably also one of the reasons why both Saigon, Buffalo, and GAM in particular want to go for Vex, because both of the mid laners are amazing at this champion, so I expect a lot of action to be coming, maybe once the Rift Herald spawns, but GAM seems to want to take matters into their own hands. Levi's only 5, though. They get the jump on Yado. They probably kill him.
Oh! Okay. Nothing gonna happen right here. It's just getting shut out. I love the attempt, though, because Levi and Kadi, if they find that, it's a very low-risk, high-reward type situation where if they kill off Yado, they can immediately go for the dragon. They've got a numbers advantage, and that's a lot stronger as of this patch to be able to use in a one-off type situation to set up for your scaling and everything else. Not to mention, it closes off Yado from the rest of the game. The damage is there. There's absolutely no mistaking that at the moment for Kadi, but don't find the play onto Yado. Bottom side protected. The push from bottom lane also is going to defend the dragon, so there's no play to be had. Instead, just a little bit of fishing from GAM that doesn't work out.
Yeah, and Taliyah is actually in a really awkward spot here. If you look at the other champions in this game, almost everyone can jump over walls. The only one that's really susceptible to being trapped under a wall or behind a wall is maybe B, but B has flash again, so he's kind of a hard target to shoot for. And then on the other side we have Kiaya. It's really risky to jump onto Kiaya when your top lane has an on, because he can probably just ignore the on and kill you and turn on you. Then he can also just jump over your wall. Then the same is true on the other side for Zeri. Zeri actually gets better against walls, so the wall actually counterproductive there. So yeah, not the greatest Taliyah setup for Yado. He might have to just wait and scale to be a little bit of counter-engage into the likes of Levi and even Karti later on in the game.
This is also, I love the mid lane matchup in this game, because there was a time and a place where these two were far and away considered our best mid laners by a significant margin. I know we've always talked about the mid pool having some weakness to it. I don't think that's disputable, really, even to this day. I think it's still a bit of a problem that's held inside of the VCS. But these two are always the more standard mage type players. I've always been excited about Yado picking up Taliyah as a potential, and when it became meta, I knew he was going to be the first to grab it. As we set up for a fight, Taliyah's a little ways out. He might have to ult into this fight. Does have his ghost back as he burned it a little bit earlier on in the laning phase. As
what is this?
Yato's going to cut off to the right. They're going to find Kadi immediately, and he's just going to get brought down. They're going to then blitz in as fast as possible. Pun's going to throw the ultimate, going to find immediately Levi just to make sure that the Wukong's going to get punished, gets knocked up. They do get the Rift Herald. Levi has to flash to try to get out, but it seems like Yato should have the movement speed with Ghost to be able to catch him right there. He's going to turn back in, but Yato's going to pick up the kill as Cerberus opt for the fight and end up winning it in pretty convincing fashion.
Proactive Cerberus, we haven't seen this in ages. Cerberus actually with a really, really strong early game plan, and what a cool attempt there to not run straight into the Rift Herald, as Pun really needs to run for his life. No, run a piece here, so you should be fine. But instead of turning to the Rift Herald and flipping it in a 4v4, they just cut off to Karti instantly. Really cool play. I love these kind of adaptations. And actually Cerberus was one of the teams back in Winter Split that did this a lot. First Herald, they didn't traditionally swap their top lane into their bot lane into top side. Instead, they always try to find this angle, this one kill.
Okay. Sorry, picture-in-picture almost got us a kill. But it seems like that's not going to be the case. Artemis trying to flex on style just a little bit, but it's not going to happen. But like you said, yeah, it's been a far cry since we've really seen the Cerberus of old. Even in the previous split, they were just completely lost. And when we walked into this split, again, my opinion was that the addition of Drakthar is a replacement for Ego, which was the team, of course, that took that winter split. And maybe it's not a perfect comparison, maybe it's not a perfect replacement, but it is at least something that they could go back to roots with in their team. And it would be nice to see them continue to return to that against GAM here, because that was the split that they won. That was the first time they'd ever really dethroned and won that best of 5 inside of playoffs to take down GAM in that split. So far, they're showing a little bit of that. Like you said, a couple of callbacks, call back to the Rift Herald, call back to some of the ways that they're actually winning through Artemis and things like that.
And on the other side, I also want to talk about GAM a little bit, because, yeah, they're on a 6-game winning streak. They are, almost everyone would agree, they're the best team in the league right now, just on form. There's another interesting attempt. Bacardi's on award, so this should not really amount to much. But they've definitely changed as a team, right? They are probably right now our best late-game team-fighting team in the league, which is a little bit weird to say, because that's actually the one archetype of team that has traditionally been able to overcome GAM in all their dominance. But their early game looks much weaker. This is another game where they're sitting at a deficit in the early game against Cerberus of all team, not actually a very strong early game team, at least in this split. And this is something I'm trying to pinpoint where GAM is weaker than before, and I feel like it has to do with Levi's pathing in the early game. Oftentimes, we actually see games where Levi doesn't really do much till the team fights. He's still amazing in team fights, don't get me wrong, he's still a really good player, as Rondo P gets caught by Levi.
I think just going to die here. They could maybe trade back. Nope, Levi's not going to have nearly enough health taken off of him. Instead, it's just a kill onto Rondo P. But I agree with that sentiment. I love the cover right here, but unfortunately, there's just not enough members as Drakthar doesn't find his way into the mid lane whatsoever. It's just going to be the Rift Herald thrown down. Going to get only the 2 plates. They can't flex for anything more as Yato's got more than enough wave clear for this. But like you were saying, like that's an important point to bring back up, is just talking about the fact that this team, they're better at team fighting. I would agree with you. To me, it's the champion pool. When I knew Levi as an aggressive champion, he had this really unique pool that he did things with. And when he was a scaler, he had this really unique pool. And now he's playing a lot of meta things, but he's not doing his own Levi thing, which is what we're missing, I think, more than anything else from the Levi pool, is his own unique champion choices.
And this is maybe more a point for the analyst desk, so maybe if you want to talk about this, you can go back to it. But I'm really wondering why they're not experimenting with AP junglers, because a lot of them are really, really strong right now. If you look at Fiddlesticks, if we look at Karthus, those champions can definitely be played, and Levi is absolutely amazing on those farming junglers. Lilia maybe not so much, he has always struggled with Lilia, but still a little bit curious as to why Levi never really wants to experiment with those AP options. But back into the game, GAM has largely equalized the gold lead, which is fine for Cerberus, I feel like, because they're still scaling nicely. But there's another attempt. That's only the clone, though.
Yeah, nothing crazy about that one. It was actually good foresight from Levi, because I don't think he had vision of that brush. He just realized the red buff was gone, the timer wasn't around, so they knew they were going.
Risky.
Bottom line, there's a bit of a fight. Drakthar didn't get pulled under tower, doesn't have to pop the ultimate for anything defensive. Instead, Cerberus are just going to walk out. They popped the Sivir ultimate, and that's all that they needed. Of course, Yato could have always just jumped the wave and immediately ulted down to bottom side, trying to find something, but not in the case.
Yeah, and we actually saw something there that only Zeri can do, which is very annoying to deal with. She can shoot without targeting, because a Q, well, it's kind of an auto attack, but it's also a skill shot. It's a really weird hybrid thingy, so you can actually just continue to fire for vision, because you can just shoot, and if you see some numbers, or if you see the stacks of your lethal tempo go up, you know, there's something over there. So that's one of the things that Zeri can do that no one else really can, and with a really long range, or as Milky would say, very short range. She actually gets to scout quite a bit.
Yeah, I learned that interaction when I happened to see it was a Zeri fighting against a Graves, and Graves had dropped smoke screen on her, and I'm like, oh wait, that doesn't work. That's right. Another reason Graves is not allowed to ever come back to the meta again in League of Legends, hopefully. As long as Zeri's around, there's always a response to it as an ADC, not having to worry about getting blinded.
I think we've seen enough Graves for the year.
For a lifetime. Yeah, okay. We've said that about Nautilus, but we've said that about Leona.
No, especially today after Coded's
performance. Coded's done more than enough damage. As Levi gets jumped on by Drakthar. Drakthar has been focusing on farming, has the level advantage here. They're both kind of posturing around this Rift Herald, which just spawned a second time, 15 minutes into the game. And the thing is, really and honestly, Artemis has pretty much exclusively been dumping every ability and auto attack into every wave. He currently sits at 70 or 171 farm. Yeah. He's got like 11 CS a minute at 15 minutes, which is disgusting for how early this is into the game.
Plus first blood, plus at least 2 platings too. So he's very far accelerated.
Very strong. Okay. looks like we're getting another move around from Cerberus who want to fight
One
around
from
this
the other
central
side.
just as fast as possible. Yep,
Oh!
that's gonna be fun. Great hook from Rado P is gonna set things up to start with. Ultimate coming out from B is gonna be also
No
very
reset.
useful, making sure the fight doesn't go through. As Artemis gets one kill, has to walk out the other side. Now Drakthar back into the front line. He's auto attacking as much as he can. Tiaya is trying to take over the fight right now as it's Connie from the other side who ends up pulling at least one kill, and that's gonna be him going over top of the wall. Gonna find Pun as well. As it's 3 kills to the side of GAM. The attempted fight from Cerberus does not work out as GAM takes the win in the fight.
They also walk away with second Drift Hull, which admittedly is not the biggest objective ever, but it's still probably a tower, most likely the mid tower. Let's look at this again, and here we see the difference between a team that tries to do everything for their ADC and the team that ignores their ADC and builds a team around the other members of the team, because Artemis is chunked out of the fight, and yes, Style goes down, but Artemis is basically down as well because he can't participate in the fight. And you have an On, you have a Talia, you have a Jinzhao. They all just exist to buy space for Artemis. Well, and Artemis wasn't there, so obviously you lose the end of the fight. Really good engaged, but I think they need to rethink their approach to team fights, because in the end, it's more important to protect Artemis than to get on top of Style. Artemis should be, he's the president, he's 2-0, he has 2 items. Just stand on top of Artemis and press that Crescent Guard for Drakthar. You're a peel champion now. You don't have to go in.
There's a lot to speak on how a fight like this is supposed to turn out. I do like the fact that GAM has a lot of kind of respect tools to push away Cerberus, at least to start with, right? If Gwen pops ultimate, if Vex pops ultimate, you have to be very wary. Cyclone, ultimate from Renata, a lot of tools that are around for GAM to use to make sure that Cerberus doesn't just get to walk forward with Artemis and press auto attack button and just win the fight outright. So like you said, I feel like there's a lot more creative ways that Cerberus can try to handle the fact that Artemis is going to have to be the load-bearing wall, I suppose, for this team fight that's attempted to be architect by Cerberus inside of a game like this.
There's a level 11 On grouping with his team on my screen, which I absolutely despise. Please go back to top lane. You are not allowed to join your team for the next 3 minutes because there's no objective on the map. Just get to level 14, be useful, actually make use of your unbelievably broken passive, because the rest of your kit is actually quite garbage. So I really do not want to see level 11 on my screen in any team fight situation again. Pun, please just stay there.
He's going to go back and just catch waves. Top tower was broken a bit ago. Ki was able to be the benefactor and collector of that first tower of the game, so he is already going to be on pretty solid itemization. It looks like could be even rushing into the Rabadon's second item, which is a filthy amount of damage that the Gwen is able to kind of supplant to the rest of this team fight that's already there from GAM, which means that also Kadi doesn't have to build as much damage, and so Zonia's second. I don't even know that the Ludens was necessary. You could have gone something like Everfrost, and maybe you don't have the burst that you do on this champion, but you are the engage bot. You're the threat to Artemis in the backline. Plenty of options all around as GAM is taking control of this game, seemingly against the grain of where Cerberus had been for the vast majority of the start of this one.
Yeah, it's a little disappointing for Cerberus not to be able to continue their early game dominance, their bot lane dominance into the mid game in a cleaner snowball, but not all is lost. Yeah, they're facing a gold deficit and a lot of very strong individual members on the other side, but their composition as a concept is still alive. They still have 2 dragons stacked in their favor already, so a lot of lever and a lot of time to scale. Artemis on 2.5 items already. So it's definitely still going to plan. The plan was interrupted a little bit, but definitely not overthrown. So Cerberus just needs to be calm, play around Artemis, and wait for the Sivir to hit 3 items, because that's definitely going to happen before Style has 3 items. But I actually... Sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I actually want to come back to the team fight discussion, because maybe you want to talk about that a little bit more, because GAM used to be this team that always builds team compositions with an insane amount of individual agency. Every single champion, every solo lane, and every jungler had their own way of carrying a fight. This is kind of going back to that kind of style, which lost them the final against Cerberus, interestingly enough, because they weren't quite as good in front to back. Where do you think they lie right now in terms of strength with that kind of team composition?
I think that they changed their identity enough to play around Style in general that they don't have to worry about that nearly as much. There was a time and a place where it felt like everybody was playing. It was almost like GAM was the best solo queue team in the world. Like they had been, like they're the best of, what is it? what is the 5v5 game mode where you organize like 5-on-5 tournaments? Clash. They were the best Clash team in the world at one point. By a significant margin, because they were all individually talented. They weren't the perfect amalgamation, right? Their compositions led a lot to like either A, they're playing solo queue champions, or they design a team comp specifically around team fighting. But now I feel like they understand their role to help support their damage a little bit better. This game, obviously, style has been punished at least a little bit. But the majority of the split, they've actually looked quite good at playing around style, even in the earlier portions of the split as well. And it's a new kind of addition to this team that has looked a lot different than anything before. And that's what I can appreciate about GAM as the difference between now and winter when Cerberus had beat them, is that their team fighting at least has a little bit more crispness to the ADC's contribution. And in the river, we got to play in the backside. Levi just immediately went in. Kiaya also got pushed out. That's a great Renata ultimate from B to kick things off as Yato and Artemis are just trying to push Kiaya out the backside of the fight.
Autotex needs to come in.
As Kiaya is going to get dropped as fast as possible. That means that Style is going to have to be the primary carry here.
Style, what?
Something. And Style flashes in over out of nowhere. Connie's going to get picked off by Yato, and Ron OP is a combination, and somehow GAM gets routed by Cerberus around the third dragon of the game, Yulway.
And I was so scared for Cerberus, because once again I saw level 12 on, I saw Artemis before, grouping before IE, not actually utilizing all of that advantage he had accrued, because it was 2 items against 2 items and change in the ADC position, so not actually the big power spike they were looking for. Kiaya had a new item, everything was looking GAM, but they fumble the fight, and it's a dragon number 3 for Cerberus, and now there is gonna be IE, there's gonna be level 13, level 14, level 15 for Pun. So suddenly the game turns entirely, and Cerberus is the huge favorite to win this one now.
Okay, so Levi went in first, right? And then dipped out without a second Cyclone really accomplishing anything. And even though B's ultimate was massive, Drakthar bumped them back out. This whole time Kiaya on the carries isn't able to make anything happen. Then Style? Just take a look at Style here. I'm really bad at it. What is that, Style? Like, you're jumping into 3 that even if he gets a kill, it just doesn't matter because the fight is already lost. But that was a disjoint fight from GAM for the first time in a long time.
To me, it's really funny, because to me it looked like the 2 teams were reading their opposite team composition better than their own team compositions, because GAM focused very hard on Artemis, and Cerberus kind of didn't do much for Artemis. I mean, they bought a lot of time on the other side, but GAM just threw member after member at Artemis, and not perfectly coordinated, so he was able to just walk away over and over again, and then even Style tried to assassinate him. I don't think that's the way to go, but the way to go might actually just be go to game 2 now, because that's now a 3-item Artemis. 1 item is going to come in very soon, and the Dragon Soul on the horizon too.
He is on 12 CS a minute. This is not good. 3-item Sivir, Infernal Dragon, Soul Point on the board, ready and raring to go for this team. Like, they have to assassinate him. That's the only play that could come through. That fight was a great indication of, like, okay, Kadi couldn't really get in. Kiai was trying, but he wasn't quite able to. Did they just land the ultimate? Kadi just landed, I believe, onto Artemis.
Artemis spell shielded that. He can't follow.
Oh, okay. He can't follow anyway. Yeah, well played from Artemis, because I don't know that they could have engaged it anyway. They had to work through B. They didn't have Kiaya, so I don't know if the fight was going to be fished for anyway, but one way or another, Artemis just gives them no opportunity to do so. As the gold still for Cerberus is really good. They're trading back and forth on the map quite effectively. I think setting up around the Baron buff to eventually start saying, okay, we'll take Baron, we'll start sieging down your structures, we'll take more ambient gold if you want to set up for the next dragon and prevent the soul point from coming through.
And it's getting stronger and stronger. This meatball that is Cerberus' team composition. You have to remember, it's also Sivir helping everyone else to have more movement speed to reposition, and Yado is getting stronger and stronger. 2-0-4. We haven't really had time to talk about Yado, who had a very quiet game, but Talia is not only an early game champion. Sure, maybe that's where she excels the most in terms of roaming power, but her late game damage and control is quite hard to deal with, especially if you look at champs like Wukong. He can't just jump through the rocks, he's gonna die. So GAM really has to think hard about coming up with a new method of winning this game. And if we look back at their series against Cerberus, I believe in spring, they happened to be in a game where they were super far behind. They couldn't win team fights. They had no way of actually winning the game. They were almost 10k gold behind, if I remember correctly. But they kept it close through side laning. GAM, the best side laning team in the league by far. So that might just be the only out right now. Put Kiaya into side lane, pressure on the other side with Kati, shadow with Levi, look for a pick or a kill, and try to just go from objective to objective. Yeah, just try to get a tower and an important kill before Dragon spawns to buy a little bit more time for Style to scale.
This game is... It feels very strange to look at this scoreboard. You're down 1,000 gold, you're up 3 dragons, you got a 318 CS Sivir at 25 minutes into the game. Like, this feels like it's already been won by Cerberus, or that it should be like a 6,000 gold advantage, and yet GAM has kept it at least close enough for them to have at least a close enough gold approximation to not have to worry. Part of that, I think, is just, again, they've got powerful members across the board. They've got Voidstaff coming in now for Kiaya as well, who, like, is going to have that probably by the next objective or close to it by the time that the next objective really rolls around. I think he's backing for it. Or, in my apologies, that's not Kiaya. Instead, he's elsewhere. But, oh my goodness.
Style? What have you done? You had to use
Ghost. My eye
Ghost.
for a tenth of a second. Oh my goodness.
So that's Ghost down for the next fight, and look at the clock,
Yeah.
30 seconds to the all-important 4th dragon. It's a soul sweep, actually on the line for Cerberus. Still behind in gold, but they want to make the next play. Getting this tower is huge.
Yeah, it's going to be massive. It's going to allow them to push the wave up just a little bit further. As Yato burns the ultimate, doesn't really matter for the team fight. That's not a really big one. Okay, they don't grab the tower, because who knows. But... who's the guess? They needed probably one more auto attack, but it doesn't matter, as they also have priority of the river. Again, Style getting pushed out was big for that, as they're going to posture at least. They could still trade objectives too. They still have the option to go up to Baron. It's warded by GAM, but they could at least threaten the trade because they feel superior as long as Artemis doesn't get jumped on in the team fight.
And the longer the game goes on, it's more and more a fight between Artemis and Kiaya on the other side, who's in an insanely strong position. Yeah, here we go.
Immediately into Kani. Ultimate from B is way too far back to end up actually getting anything. Levi gets ripped apart on the front line, and Rano, he got out. Everything in the kitchen sink so far. Yato, or my apologies, Kani goes in on punt. It just gets nothing. Just gets absolutely nothing. No one is able to accomplish anything right now. It feels like GAM has wasted every tool at the front end of this fight. Kiai is going to try to wrap around as best he can to get some kind of pressure onto Artemis, but the Infernal Dragon is
going
definitely
lower.
Levi has to find a steal, as they're going to turn. Kiaya is going to throw some
Kiaya damage
into everything else, as that's going to be more damage across. He's sitting behind everybody, but they're able to kill enough members. That's huge from Kiaya to be able to start things off. The Dragon is taken. Pun is going to let Artemis continue to walk forward, as that's a triple kill traded back. Cerberus able to find at least some kind of response of a fight coming out here. Kiaya putting the team on his back, getting 3 kills and winning them the Dragon in exchange for Artemis being able to match, getting quite a bit more gold into the Sivir.
Double, triple kill. It's all about Kiaya against Artemis. The unlikely 1v1, I guess, on the Rift, because honestly, it's not that unlikely. We all know Artemis is the carry for Cerberus. It always has been, has gotten an MVP, and guess what? Kiaya was the last MVP. It's actually the fight of the 2 last MVPs on our screen right now. This is such a good, well-coordinated re-engage. Finally, GAM found their communication again, because Kiaya buys so much space and also just pushes everyone away from the Dragon. Dragon down to almost 3k HP, but now they can't continue, and the Dragon actually resets here. Look at that AoE damage. It's devastating. And honestly, on the other side, Artemis just doesn't have the same amount of AoE damage at the same speed as Kiaya. They need to kite Kiaya and go from him. They can't ignore him like this.
It was huge because Artemis was playing very defensively, as I think he needs to, right, inside of a fight. He doesn't want to get caught up in all that damage that Kiaya has got. But the trade-off is, of course, that Artemis isn't attacking all the members of the team at once. Like you said, if you're relying on the Ricochet is going to have damage, but it's not going to be like quite as much as just like flat autoing members. And so Artemis has a bunch of through damage, but when the only person you can hit is Kiaya, and it's not necessarily bouncing to every member of the team, like you said, the through damage just isn't there from the Sivir as this primary carry. Does have Guardian Angel now, so I think you can posture a lot more aggressively in fights as Artemis. Like that's at least one potential. Does that change the way that this game plays out? Can Artemis now run forward with basically reckless abandon as soon as the or as soon as the Renata ultimate is down and really make aggressive movements towards GAM's composition?
I mean, I don't actually think it changes too much. It gives them a little bit more time to actually protect Artemis. He can't get one shot now, which is a good thing for them, definitely. But to me, it's all about Drakthar and trying to keep Kiaya awake, trying to slow Kiaya down, knock him up, buy time so Kiaya can't devastate your backline like you did last time. Or we just run at Baron, because why not?
Okay, it's about half health right now. The team fight is
Uh-oh.
actually getting pushed. And Branopi hooks in, misses, and
Artemis,
he's gonna get
no!
very quickly. That's a delivery of Cody right into the middle of the team. He's gonna find one. Almost goes down himself as Artemis is almost popped out of the Guardian Angel style, able to bring him down. And the rest of the team is too far back. Artemis is gonna be able to survive. He's gonna go down, and GAM is gonna win the fight around the Baron buff really, really handily as they find the engagement from a very far distance away. Cerberus desperately looking for a fight to be able to take this Baron, but they're going to lose their ability to do so very quickly as GAM regains control of the game.
And this time they actually found the way onto the backline and everyone crammed up around the Baron. That's exactly where you don't want to be. You want an open field. You want to have maneuverability with all your super fast champions. You're playing Sivir and Talia with Ghost, but let's take another look. Cardi's ultimate somehow was not denied this time by the spell shield. The spell shield is split second too late. That might have just cost them the entire game there. If the spell shield is in time, Cardi can't follow in. Artemis can reposition. They probably get to fight another. Maybe they don't win, but it's definitely a closer fight. And then Artemis dies. He loses GA as well. That's a lot of wasted money on the side of Artemis. And suddenly, GAM in a strong position. They are still facing that soul point up in 1.5 minutes, but can Cerberus even establish any semblance of control to get close to the soul?
A couple of big things also. We noticed, or at least I think our devs talked a little bit about the interaction between Talia E and Vex ultimate. And actually, the rocks get broken, but they don't stun because she's untargetable. And right there, the E from Yato was used in an attempt to push off Kadi from actually entering the fight, and the stun didn't go through, obviously, which means Kadi got delivered. But that was a big reason why, like, Levi and Kiaya and Style could easily dash and start to put themselves in better position into the Baron Pit area, because that E was not used in the direction of the big team. They were actually used to zone off Kadi, which is interesting because, again, Yato has a lot of damage himself, sitting on now 3 items with some pen, with everything else. Has to be more conscious about the usage of things, as Kiaya is just going to step in with the Baron buff, going to close off bottom tower. Kiaya is such a menace, and it's such a raid boss inside a game like this, almost has Rabadon, which means he is basically full assassin to worry about inside of this game for Cerberus.
It's getting scarier and scarier. This scissor lady is she's gonna patch everyone up. But I feel like Cerberus lost a little bit of their opportunity to get this dragon. They completely conceded dragon positioning for no apparent reason. I feel like they could have definitely fought back a little bit harder against this Baron push, because they gave GAM a free tower with the Baron and then also way into Dragon, so now it's another 5 minutes left to wait for their big prize, and still not anywhere closer to winning this game. In the meantime, Style has suddenly completed 4 items, getting dominated by Artemis the whole game, but now they are on item parity, and we know all about Zeri late game, so it's getting dicier.
Okay. So Sivir did just complete Bloodthirster. There is a pretty big useful tool there for the side of Cerberus that now Sustain is going to be available when the Guardian Angel backup. It's going to be difficult to actually manage. The other portion of this, I will push back slightly on the point before. I think if they go for Dragon and they go for a fight and they lose the game.
That's fair.
Whereas the game is not lost right now, they still have the ability to bank on Artemis. So maybe they just weren't willing to kind of bid the farm quite yet, so to speak, on that Dragon play, because they have 2 more dragons to play with, basically. They can pick the optimal fight for themselves when the time comes to try to get people onto itemization. Now, that being said, Dracflower currently sits at, 1 completed item?
At least it's an on item.
He's on, support itemization. Yeah, it is an on item, but goodness gracious, please get some gold into one of your frontliners for the love of, finish an item, please. He's got, 4 components.
Ceaseless Hunger, I believe it's called.
Yeah,
he's definitely not ceaselessly hungry for items this game, unfortunately for his team, because he's barely more than a support at this point. To be honest, his role in the game is kind of akin to a support. He just needs to stand on top of Artemis, plant his feet there, and just say, "No, Kiaya, you shall not pass." He's gonna die in 2 seconds looking at Artemis and at Kiaya's itemization, but that doesn't really matter, because as long as he buys space and time for Artemis, everything is fine.
Absolutely.
They actually gave him the whole wave. That's interesting. He probably is close to an item. They gave him the whole wave. Another item is gonna go, well, not a long way, but at least a little bit more towards being a useful part of the team.
Okay, so on one hand, I understand that you really want magic resist, and Force of Nature is probably not a bad idea for like some movement speed. I feel like it might be better to go Abyssal here, just so that you can dip for some additional damage onto Yato by pulling magic resist off members, and you're dying anyway. Like you're not gonna, you aren't the target for the magic dealers, and also you are gonna die anyway, so it doesn't matter. So to me, I think you just want more damage. That's my opinion on the matter. I have this really quick because we're in a bit of a lull state. We're just waiting for objectives to pop up. Do you know what the upgraded Crown of the Shattered is called?
That's the only one I'm not so sure about from the items right now. I don't think I know the crown.
I don't know if it's Caesura or Caesura, but I don't know what it means either. But yeah, that's what the crown is called. So
yeah, it's like the hat.
Mm-hmm.
The hat. What do we call it? The hat of Caesar. So it's a Caesar. Yeah. It makes you a Caesar.
Oh, okay.
I think
that's pretty neat.
Yeah, the intention behind the name. Yeah, that's very nice.
That's pretty cool.
Speaking of which, Yado should be sitting at something like 500 AP right now, so we can't ignore him in the next fight.
No, he's strong.
He's gonna be quite strong as well. And I've seen some Q cooldowns on Talia in the late game. It is not a cooldown. Like, you can't call it a cooldown. It's basically up all the time. It's
might as well be an auto attack.
Yeah.
Yeah, I always consider her a DPS champion in the late game just because she can always throw out rocks. But again, the important part of the kit here, at least in my opinion, is the usage of that E to prevent Levi and Style from just kind of haphazardly walking into the midst of the fight. That's your number one deterrent for making sure those two champions can't just walk in and get on top of Artemis and do absolutely nothing else, alongside, of course, Drakthar and Pun being in that availability as well. So we're paying attention to this. Baron is going to be up in about 10 seconds. Everyone had only just reset on Cerberus. I think with Vision, that would have been an easy enough play for GAM, but they didn't know any of that was actually the case, so they're just kind of sitting around in the topside river. Dragon's also available in 1 minute, so the timer has to be very careful here from both teams, because if you take Baron, the other team is going to get Dragon, and that's a bad situation, I think, for both these teams at this point in the game. And so it's really, really difficult to find a timer to really go on to Baron or Dragon. If you're going to try to look on a B, they're not going to find him. This is a nice little flash away. B's not going to have to worry about that, but can't put your ultimate down as easily as Cotty. Also potentially picked off. Also has to flash, as the ultimate fishing coming out from Cerberus actually yields quite a bit right here. If they can wait for those cooldowns, that's going to be Levi. He jumps immediately.
God, he missed!
From Vex is going to miss, as Levi's going to be there. He's going to Cyclone Flash into the rest of the team just as fast as possible. Over the wall, he's going to jump on Artemis, and he's going to assassinate Artemis immediately inside of this one. Yano's putting out
oh my god!
But Sivir is erased from the game, and that means that Cerberus has lost the fight. There is absolutely nothing left for them to accomplish, as that means Cerberus loses the game. GAM, after losing like 5 cooldowns and Levi almost getting picked off, is able to find the right angle to put the damage into the right member, and GAM will win game number 1.
And I think here we can see the difference between Winter GAM and Summer GAM. They might not quite be as dominant in the early game, but they worked on their team fighting. They can now actually stand up to Artemis' team. Not only stand up, completely overwhelm them. 5-0 ace. It was not even close in the last team fight. And remember, this started with 300 CS Sivir at something like 225 minutes. But GAM in the team fights looking resplendent. What a dominant performance in those fights from behind. This is our number 1 team. They didn't look quite as astonishingly dominant as Saigon Buffalo before, right? But Cerberus is also no slouch. So what a good performance from GAM in those team fights, finding the keys to actually crack this very tough nut that was Cerberus' composition.
And as long as we get games that are competitive like this even more into the future, this was nice. It was like a 40-minute game, big team fights a couple of different times. The only thing I wish is that Cerberus could find a way to stay a lot more relevant, because it felt like Artemis was their main propping tool, and outside of that, like, I guess Yato was putting out damage. There's nothing wrong with that, but it just felt like the bones to their composition were basically on Artemis, and he got jumped on a number of times. And so for game 2, hoping that we get a little bit more, Artemis kind of supremacy. We get a game 3, because this was a really, really exciting start to a series that could be incredibly competitive between these two rival type teams, one way or another. We're going to be back in just a couple of minutes with our analyst desk to be able to break down that one and set us up for game at number 2 here. Stick around. We'll be right back.
Welcome back, everyone. We just had an absolute banger of a game one between GAM and Cerberus. So, Tim and, pardon me, Beast, for some reason I was about to say Marvi, but Tim and Beast, do you guys want to jump in and break down that game? Because it started off very well for the side of Cerberus, Beast.
Yeah, they got the 2v2 kill bot, they're 2-0 up. They go to top side, they're 4-0 up. Really? If this is 2 even teams, it's over. But GAM are insane. They're team fighting this game, especially Kiaya. Perfect. Genuinely one of the best team fighting games we've seen, from behind to claw that back. And Cerberus has to feel really demoralized. This is perfect. This is exactly what you want from the early game, but they just still couldn't take it home.
And would you echo that sentiment, Tim?
Yeah, I think I would. I mean, I posed the question in the green room, kinda, with like, if you can't win without Sivir, how do you? And I think everything went right for the Sivir. And again, Sivir had 70% win rate going into this game, and she had a perfect game, and then this happened. So yeah, it's a bit of a yikes.
Now, obviously, this series is very important for the side of Cerberus, because if they were able to beat GAM, we'd be in a situation where, from SBTC and Saigon Buffalo currently tied for third on 7 wins, you then have Team Wells and Cerberus tied in 5th with six wins, which makes things even closer heading into the final week. Now, there were definitely some positive signs for Cerberus in the early stages of the game. And Tim, you kind of mentioned, if they can't win with the Sivir, how can they win? That game seemed to be going very well for Cerberus. Do you think it was just a case, Beast, that they just misplayed fights? I remember there was that one particular fight at the Baron where Artemis wasn't able to spell shield away the Vex Shadow Surge, and maybe if that doesn't land, the game's a very different story.
Yeah, the thing is that spell surge, it's a really strong engage, right? And you have to spell shield it. But it's actually quite a hard spell to engage, to spell shield when it's coming from Fog of War, which I'm fairly certain that they cleared the vision. So it's not really, as much as it is the losing play, it's not really anything else could do better about it.
I think the other thing to bring up is, Artemis got ahead, which we know he can do. And Tim, I'm sorry that all of these questions are on the side of Cerberus. So I'm going to switch it over and start talking about the top lane, because for me, Kiaya, when he found that flank at the 4th Drake, which could have been Soul Point, that was the play that kind of brought GAM back into the game, and that flank was just so big.
Yeah, and it's again something we see specifically with Gwen, of course. I think I've heard top laner talk about there were a lot of early game nerfs, right, to the laning phase consistently of Gwen. She was removed from jungle, but it's always the sentiment. It doesn't matter. Your laning phase can be bad and they can nerf it over and over again, but you're still Gwen. If you find that flank, if you have your 2 items and you get into that flank and you get into the backline, the game is immediately over because your champion is near possible to hide away from, and it was a perfect flank there. He got to the back line. Yes, the Sivir didn't die, but she didn't need to, because the rest of the team died around her, and then she had no front line, no engage to play around anymore.
Well, with that, we are heading into picks and bans, and Cerberus banning away Kiaya's Gwen. They're making sure that there is no way that Gwen can be another thorn in their side for game 2. But kind of as we saw in game 1, Beast, we're seeing GAM banning away Yadozari.
Yeah, Yadozari gone again. And again, we're going to see at least one of the big ADCs up. GAM gets to choose whether it's either they don't ban either or Kalista Zeri. They're going to ban Kalista. I would have liked the trade Kalista Zeri, but that does leave Zeri open, and I'd be surprised if Cerberus don't pick it.
I think leaving Kalista up there is a bit suicidal, because you can't actually pick Zeri into Kalista without suiciding your bot lane, and you already got solo killed. If you put yourself in a matchup that is even harder, you're probably going 0-8 and they're gonna run their way with the game. So I like the Kalista ban. I think you can actually answer the Zeri with champions like a Jinx still, a Aphelios is still open, so there are still options for you to choose from. And I think them going for one of them could be very strong, covering the Jinx right now. Jinx is locked in. I think it's one of the best answers. You have very easy push into that Zeri matchup, and you can just win the lane through having better push than a Zeri, and then move around the map for your support.
So Yuumi was banned in the first game, and Zeri Yuumi is very strong, so I expect to see that. And the Vi comes in as a pretty standard counter, and we see Taliyah. Taliyah is strong, don't get me wrong, I like Taliyah. But you had Yuumi here as a really possible champion.
I think the risk with Yuumi, especially with Nautilus being available on 3, is it's always really risky to lock her in, because playing Jinx Nautilus into Zeri Yuumi is really free. Not only can you actually look for solo kills in lane, but also the Nautilus has basically complete move prior around the map. Nautilus being locked in anyways because it's just so good at engaging that Zeri, making sure she's not playing team fights. Point and click ultimate to see on Zeri, just still one of the best spells to lock her down, so I like to lock him anyways. And now I think you don't even have to ban the Yuumi. You can ban just a Renata, maybe even something like a Rakan if you want to take out one of those roaming supports.
The first round of picks are coming through, and this time at GAM, they see that the Renata is open, so they're going to ban it away, take it off the board. And we are seeing GAM, and more specifically Style, opting back towards the Jinx, which is his second most played champion this split. The thing I do want to bring up, Beast, is Game 1 was not B's best performance. It was very sketchy, it wasn't the B we're used to seeing. Do you think here in Game 2 we see that B returning now that he is on this Nautilus?
Well, Nautilus is very standard champ. We've been playing it for years, and B's been one of the best on it for years. It's very interesting to see that the GAM definitely agree with Tim here. They don't ban the Yuumi and they leave it open, so I'm expecting Cerberus to pick it now at least.
And one really surprising thing is the Victor ban over the Vex, because Vex again fits really nicely into GAM's comp. You want to just take out first target, you hit an ultimate on one of the frontline targets, burst that down, and then move on with your Jinx reset deeper and deeper into the team fight. It really fits into your team comp, so I like the pick up for GAM, but I'm also surprised it was even left open. And yeah, again, it's just, you can't pick Zeri Yuumi into Jinx Nautilus, because Jinx Nautilus actually stays very much even. Yes, you have a bit of a Yuumi heal to yourself, but Jinx actually one of the best scaling AD carries, and you're basically accepting that Jinx is up like 30-40 CS in lane, because you cannot actually play the lane. So while I'm not really a huge friend of the Leona, she was of course buffed on the next patch that they're not playing on yet, but I think right now Leona's not in the best spot, but in this spot it's probably one of the best supports you can actually pick into GAM if you want to have that extra engage, which you kind of need with your Vi, or you're leaving your Vi out to dry in the enemy backline.
And also we're seeing this Ornn getting picked up for Kia. It was picked up by Pun in the first game, and this time it is Pun who is on that Croc, his most played champion across his career.
Yep, the Croc's going to do Croc things. It's not really changed that much, but it's a lot tankier than it used to be back in Spring Split. And GAM's comp looks very much like a Spring Split comp. The Vex, the Ornn, and I think that they were the nearly undefeated team in games and undefeated in series, so I expect them to go 2-0 and lock themselves into playoffs.
Okay.
I can only agree.
Tim, are you on the same? Okay.
Yeah, I can only agree. I think Cerberus hurt themselves with their own bans in the second rotation so much, actually. Looking back, they also banned the Camille, which is of course countered by Renekton, so not sure what they were doing there, but I think the second rotation really cost them the draft, and I think it cost them the game.
Okay, and with that, we're going to throw over to our casting duo. I got told that I have to show some respect, so I will. Did you guys know that Rebel is actually bilingual? Not only can he speak English, but he can also speak American. You're right, his English is a bit broken. Either way, Rebel, your way, take us away.
Welcome back, ladies and gentlemen, to the VCS English live broadcast here as we get into game number 2 of GAM versus Cerberus. Hey, did everybody know that Milky wets the bed? That's right, he pees himself every single night, and it's funny because he's a 35-year-old man. Anyway, that's my knock towards him. You're welcome to start talking at any point. Can you tell me about... Okay, let me know this is a rough opinion. I actually don't really love GAM's composition, like, at all.
Yeah, I'm not the biggest fan of both the Jinx and the Wukong, I have to say. Like, I can understand why you want to go Wukong again. Because it's a super strong champion. But the priority on the Wukong is kind of surprising to me. I think GAM should be a team that can also play a few more champions, experiment a little bit more with jungle, and I'm still just very confused as to why GAM is so... Yeah, it just doesn't experiment ever with the jungle picks when there's so many things you can do. You can counter the Wukong. You can actually try to get a really good matchup for Levi, who's the best farmer of all time in the VCS jungle, and it's just confusing to me.
It's strange. Maybe they're holding their strategies for playoffs. Maybe that's the idea. They're so late into the season, it just doesn't matter to them that much. But outside of that one aspect, I cannot imagine why it is that they would not be experimenting a little bit more, especially in games like this where it feels like you have a little bit of leeway to be able to do so. As Pun, it's a little bit of a trade. That was okay. He goes Q start, which that's not always the best for like the bush strat, right? Like typically you go W, right? Like you just try to auto cancel, you get the stun, you get an additional auto attack, and you're up like 3 autos. But Pun instead opts for the Q, goes for a little bit of the healing to kick things off, does have the rage bar kind of advanced quite a bit. It does have quite a bit of pressure over top of Kiai now, at least.
I think it's mostly the difference between PTA and Conqueror, from what I've seen, where PTA you definitely go W to get the instant proc and deal a lot of damage and even have kill pressure. With Conqueror you don't really need to, because, well, you probably can't kill him anyway, and the extra healing is nice. But yeah, this is another Renekton. Pun is one of our very high-profile Renekton players, as is Kiaya. Kiaya is not an on player. He is so far. Whenever Hankai was coming onto our stream and podcast, he was talking about on, just saying, best champion in the game, but Kiaya just doesn't want to play it. Apparently, he has talked him over, as that's a huge gank.
Immediately, Yato into the mid lane, as that's going to be Flash's burn, actually from Cody and Levi, and they don't get Yato. They do get both of his summoner spells, and he's going to have to back almost certainly, but he's in a really bad position, so the wave is messed up very heavily for Yato right now. Maybe they want to go for a dive afterwards as well, but double Flash from GAM's mid-jungle for that.
Drakthar, can you please come and help? Thank you. He is very far overextended.
Actually, yeah, Cody's very far up, okay. Q Flash coming
through.
Yep,
Nice.
There it is. Gorgeous. Absolutely gorgeous.
Unfortunately, not able to get the kill over to Yato, but still a nice early kill for Drakthar and really nicely punished. So first aggression for GAM, but first kill over to Cerberus.
I don't mind it because, to me, this ends up being a game where it's a contest between ADCs, and if Drakthar is fed, he is a way to contest style. Just press the ultimate button and go after him as fast as he can, try to erase him before he does any really significant damage in a fight, and it's a lot harder to stick to the Zeri, so I'm okay with Levi getting some early gold here, as once again, summoners traded between mid and jungles on both sides. It ends up being first blood here to Cerberus.
We see a little bit of the early bot lane domination from Jinx and Nautilus, as Tim predicted. Yeah, Jinx just really good wave clear, very easy, very fast trades into the Zeri, where she can't really retaliate because Zeri can't hit through the minions. Jinx can. So yeah, this is just a really easy game to play for Stahl so far, and we know Stahl is a really good Jinx player in the first place.
Okay. B taking a little bit of damage, but not going to follow it. Is Ron OP, instead just taking the chip damage as necessary, letting Artemis poke him away at least a little bit. I'm looking at both junglers because I do feel like, oh, actually, wait, there's okay. You can't point the camera here if nothing's gonna happen. I want to see action. Okay, Levi's here for the cover, and Draklar's on the other side of the map right now, so we could get a response. As Pun flashes can't get out of the range of the E from Kiaya, as now Levi is going to go in. He stepped forward thinking Levi would want more, but Levi actually just backed off, so he lost the E. If the flash was held, I suppose they could have kept chasing him, but instead it's just going to be a done deal on the top side.
So he actually got out by tanking instead of using his E. He tanked the knockup and then used E afterwards, which was enough because Levi, of course, had no flash to follow. Interesting. I thought he was dead there, but well played from Pun. Knows his champions, knows the limits, and knows how to get out of there. As Cerberus is a little bit late on the reset, but they should be able to crash the wave. Oh, Style is actually staying here, like these minions, so it's actually a first reset from Cerberus instead, which is quite good on the Zeri into Jinx lane, so going pretty well for Cerberus in game 2 again.
Yes. Okay, I do wonder if Styles stuck around here just to try to link up his timer with Levi heading into the bottom side jungle because the dragon is going to be up. Because now B has a chance to step into bottom side river, put some wards down, maybe make a play against Yato since the wave is in a really bad position for the Talia to make a play against Kadi, especially with level 6 looming. Instead, Levi's actually cross-mapping and he's going to find nothing up for Drakthar. I was really hoping the bottom side lean would actually work out here. Like, they have so much control of the mid lane right now that it is ridiculous. But instead, Levi just wants to punish this top lane matchup. His ultimate's there for Ki, not there for Pun. Gonna get knocked up. He's going to die. Nothing really to be done about that one, as Ki is just going to collect that one up just as fast as possible.
Getting himself a nice back. He really wanted this one because he even came twice, and Kiaya collects the kill. That's really, really good for GAM. Now Kiaya off to a great start, doesn't have to contest every single CS because, yeah, he already has a kill under his belt, is up in experience, already level 6 on the on, and it's just smooth sailing from the side of GAM. They're going to look at late game with On and Jinx and be pretty confident about that stage of the game.
And that's Drakthar pulling a couple of minions there, but again, not on bottom side. I was anticipating, he was pathing towards top, so it's not surprising he's not going to be available for any sort of bot side play. But it's unfortunate because it felt like there was opportunity here for, Cerberus to make a response play on the other side of the map, but getting punished, all things considered. Just losing their top laner. Now the Renekton in a hole that's probably not able to be overcome in any significant fashion because he's down 8 CS. He's got a call as his first component item, like, not a great place to be if you're the Renekton, not feeling good into the Ornn. Instead, they got to use him at Rift Herald, maybe. Maybe that's the play here for Pun, more than anything else. If Ryuk has taught us anything, it's that the Renekton is a mean team fighter when you can flank with him properly, so hopefully Pun can try to manage that one.
Well, we talked about Renekton yesterday a whole lot and how he doesn't really have to be ahead in the early game. I think it's a little bit worse against On, where he should really have a little bit of an advantage, but his time is still to come. He's a strong mid-game champion, 1 item, 1.5 items, and flash stun on Style. Now, Style did bring his cleanse and wise clairvoyance, I guess, because, yeah, it's gonna happen. He's gonna get flashed on top of. But there's still a Vi to follow up on. There's still Yado, and we all know about Renekton Talia combination, so I think he can still act as a little bit of a CC bot later on in the game, but he's losing top quite heavily.
Yes, and especially with Levi hovering around, there's no play to be made. Is in mid lane, Kadi had to leave, was backing in the middle of the lane, and it looks like it got stopped by Drakthar kind of poking his head into that brush, as now Drakthar steps into Rift Herald area. Levi can see this with the ward, but with Kadi having no mana, can't push. Yato is available to walk into mid, as well as bot lane being here as well. Cerberus is just ready and raring to go on the fight if the time comes. As B is here, Kadi's here. They might try to contest, but all 5 members of GAM or Cerberus are here and ready to fight this one. We're seeing kind of a reminiscent of what we had seen in the previous game. That's going to be an ultimate coming through. Ultimate onto Kadi immediately from Drakthar is going to kick things off. That's going to be an immediate assassination as they're traded jungler for 1. That's going to be on the backside. Artemis trying to put in damage as Levi gets one on the front side of this one. Kiaya is going to jump in on a Pun, who is just getting absolutely eviscerated in terms of damage. As Artemis and Yato, the 2 damage healers, are available. W is gorgeous from Artemis to be able to continue.
He needs to get these kills. He needs to chase these.
1 back. Okay, can he find anything else? He's got E up in just a couple of seconds. Can he find the time? Can he find anything? B is just going to come back with the hook, as that's going to be the break of the fight. Cerberus getting something back. GAM looked like they were primed and ready to win inside of a fight like that, but thankfully, Cerberus pulling a couple of members back. Nobody gets the Rift Herald. At least not yet. It seems like they're sticking around. Drakthar is going to be back here in just a second as we get a replay of the fight.
A really nice interruption by Pun there. He knows where Kiaya wants to come from because he played the On in the last game, but then it's not quite enough damage from Artemis at the start. If this is a late game fight, Artemis just sweeps through everyone. Yeah, but he has a Cull and maybe a Noon Quiver, so there's very, very little damage coming from his side. It's still a 250 W onto the tank, so yeah, he's going to get scary, and he just collected 2 kills. Now it's only 1 went over to him, so not quite as good as I thought it would be. Still, Cerberus playing it close. They got the Herald as well, so if they can funnel that gold into Artemis, once again, we're looking at the hyper carry from Winter, potentially bringing them to game 3.
And it was Rift Herald taken by Drakthar after because he was the first one dead. He ulted in immediately to kick off that fight and then was the first one redeployed on the map afterwards because he was the first one to go down. And they had all the pressure in the world because all the members of GAM remaining after the fight were very low, couldn't stick around, as Artemis was still had the most of his health bar, had a lot of play room to play with, which is a great position to be in. As Cerberus again showing this insane propensity to play incredibly well around this Rift Herald, which is again, this wasn't always their identity inside of this split, but previously we knew it was their strength. And again, it's nice to see them kind of go back to it, especially as they're trying to make a push for playoffs here. This is a playoff contention team. They're trying to pass up, Saigon Buffalo is still ahead of them. SE is still ahead of them, but they do have date against SE next week to potentially try to flip that matchup on its head and to make themselves the playoff contender because they're very close to it, but they have to win this game against GAM.
Engage on style?
Rakthar is going to ult immediately over. That style just dead immediately. Levi is going to flash an ultimate to try to put some damage in. His Artemis needs to try to put damage
Levi's
out.
so
Levi
strong.
has nothing else. He's still alive. He's going to bring him down after all things said and done, as Yato doesn't have the damage to carry the rest of the fight, as it's going to be one from GAM, but one on the other side of the map is getting bullied by Kiai a bit, but it's going to be a dragon and a fight win for GAM.
Levi is actually right now the hyper carry for GAM. If you just fight on Wukong's terms in the early game, this is a really strong champion. He has a lot of damage under his belt. It's not a one and done champion like Vi. This champion can actually bring the DPS, and yeah, Style died, but everyone overextended. Artemis went over the wall and then had no way of kiting Levi. Levi just natural armor from his passive, everything going his way. He walks away with another 2 kills and another objective under his belt. But let's take another look. The engage is cool, but you also have to remember Ronopi is not...
Okay.
Yeah, he's level 6 here. But Artemis can't move anywhere. He doesn't have E, so where does he go? He can't. He can't go anywhere. So it's everyone just AoEing down this Zeri. Zeri loves to have open space and a little bit of terrain where he can surf at the sides and then use her movement speed and her insane kiting abilities. This is exactly where you don't want to fight as Zeri.
It was so strange too, because it seemed very heavily like Artemis jumped over a wall, popped ultimate, and then immediately got caught up. If you just stayed on the other side of the wall with Yato, either A, you get to auto attack over the wall for free if they decide to take the fight into the 2 members that went over in both Ronopi and Rakthar, which they seem like they were committing to one way or another. And the other half of it is if they stay on the other side, Yato is your body blocker. You get to put in damage on the other side of the fight, and there's no way to get onto you because all the cooldowns had been burnt from Levi. I don't know if it was one big vision lapse there that prevented Artemis from playing that fight perfectly, but it was over-aggression, overstepping from Artemis that I think really cost him. Because again, if he's over top of the wall, he probably doesn't die and puts in a lot more damage safely inside of that fight. So it's just a mistake from the veteran.
Also forces Levi to then go over to the other side of the wall, which costs him some time. Then he has the open river to kite. Yeah, the going into this choke point was the worst possible situation, and especially against something like Vex, Wukong, and Nautilus. Those are the dream champions to go fight into close quarters, because everything they do is AoE CC. So yeah, Artemis needs to do better in team fights, and the first one was quite impressive, but now his flash is almost up again. Remember, that was down in the Dragon fight, actually, because he used that aggressively to chase down some members on the top side of the map. So Cerberus can look for another fight. He finished his first item now. He just completed his cash-in with a cull as well. So he should be on pretty strong items once he goes back to base.
Okay, now bottom side, you can see there's a ridiculous number of wards that are covering that one area that the fight had existed in, but outside of that, it's going to be something else. As Kadi is defending right now against the dive. Can Ronopi catch him? He cannot. The teleport is going to get him out of a bad situation. Instead, take him to top lane where there's a winning fight. Pun with a nice flash as Levi's on top of him as well. He uses the Q to try to get some health back, but thankfully Levi took tower aggro, so Kiai is not under any threat. Instead, just the kill to top side. As bottom lane is now really, really free to push from the side of Cerberus. They're just trading opposite sides of the map. I do wonder if they can pull first tower somehow, but it seems like Zeri's the only one there. So they're going to give up first tower in exchange for exclusive gold onto Artemis here for the side of Cerberus.
They are not the fastest pushers over there. I tell a lie because it's Wukong with an item completed. That's actually a very fast tower pusher.
Yeah,
or not so much, but they still get the tower. It's a 1-for-1 trade. Artemis funneled gold into, and here we have another engage.
Ultimate in Drakthar, immediately knocked away. Actually, really well played from Yato right there, as Drakthar still alive on the other side of the fight. He's going to try to live against Kadi. Smite is going to get it, but Q is going to clean up on the other side. It's just a 1-for-1. Jinx traded for the Vi. There's all the members of Arcane suffering inside of a game like this, but Kadi slowly becoming an absolute beast as this pick in the mid lane here, this insane usage. 2 games in a row now has just been so good.
Yeah, and we have to think about Cerberus' team composition. They do have a lot of engage tools. They can jump on style, but so far it doesn't really seem to bear a lot of fruit. I feel like they might be overextending onto style, and if you put Levi as a counter-engage into the equation as well, I'm not so sure if they have to continue on this path. Maybe utilize all the repositioning tools from Zeri a little bit more and try to go from there, because style is honestly pretty far behind, so put a little bit more focus, in my opinion, on Levi and Carti, because they are the mid-game threats.
Yeah, Kai to me is the one that you have to pay a lot of attention to. And this is why, walking into the game, I kind of wanted to see the Vi go for more damage. If you go for Electrocute, Hail of Blades, and you take, I don't know, Dusk Blade, but definitely something more damage-oriented. Could have been a way to assassinate without having to burn anything else, right? You press ultimate, you press Q, you press E, and immediately style is dead. And the same things happen inside of this game that are happening normally. The difference is it happens a lot faster and with only one champion, which is the only argument that I can make for it, because otherwise Drakthar just ends up being kind of... And at this point, he's more of a disengaged tool than anything else. This round up, he is picked very, very easily by the rest of this team. Ultimate gets dropped, but Styles can take that one.
Donated. Oh, GAM is playing so much like they did in spring. Just put Style on a hyper carry, give him a kill here and there, just let him farm for a while, and then he carries late game teamfights with all the setup of the other amazing members in his team. That was an Ego Herald, if I've ever seen one. Can we please just drop Heralds straight in front of the tower? VCS teams in this last week have been insanely bad, just and overly greedy, just running around corners and trying to drop that thing exactly on the tower. Just put it into your wave. You already have push. It's an assured push if you do it there. That's a pretty big misstep from GAM's side. Squandered their opportunity to get an even bigger lead, but... I mean, in the end, they still get a kill, they still get the dragon, it's still all GAM.
They do. They're in a fantastic position. Even unlike last game, they're up the 2 dragons as well, which is the big thing, at least to me. They don't have this insanely powerful sliver. They do have the Zeri, which is in a pretty solid position. Artemis already on 2 items, the most in the game at this point, as opposed to everybody else's itemization. But again, the 2 dragons yield very, very good results for GAM when it comes to later stages of the game, when they have the ability to play for the Dragon Soul, play for those team fights like they've been winning the vast majority of the series as well. And commanding a 2K gold lead is a perfect position to be in, because normally they're the ones down in games and coming back with superior team fighting. But now with the advantage, got more than enough to work on here inside of this one. GAM feeling great about the position that they're going to be in, especially because they've got a date next week with Team Secret for the #1 slot in the entire league, which, again, normally would be a tie, right? But Team Secret didn't beat them in the first rotation. There was the one team that they beat that they probably shouldn't have in the first rotation was GAM towards the end and towards the beginning of their reign of terror that they've had in the second half of the season. So if they win against Team Secret again, I believe they're a sole benefactor of that #1 position as well.
So they get to pick the very likely much weaker #4 team compared to #3. We're currently looking at a league where Saigon Buffalo might be the #3 team, as Puapan is getting dived on again.
Okay, he will live. That's a solid Gore Drinker, and Kiwa is going to buy him a little bit more time underneath the tower, but unfortunately, Kiaya is an absolute brick house right now when it comes to the health bar. Has over 3k and just doesn't care about what damage is dealt to him by a tower as Pun continues to get aggressed against. But coming back to this, once again, GAM is just, they're slaying everybody. They're doing great things. Actually, Round LP is going to make sure that I am not allowed to talk about narratives at all, as they're going to attempt to jump on the Kadi. Does work out. Artemis in the backline does pop the ultimate to try to put some damage.
Artemis needs to get these.
Anything. He's able to put some damage into style, but he gets feared off. Well played from Kadi, as Artemis can't find an angle in, can't find the damage necessary. Instead, it's just a member, nobody going down actually, but Ultimate's burn from the side of servers. That fight looked like it had promise, but unfortunately just not able to capitalize.
And time is running out for this Cerberus composition. Yes, they have the Zerius, the ultra late game insurance policy, but all the rest of the composition is geared towards early dragon stacking, towards mid-game team fighting. We have Renekton, Talia. They are always going to be super strong in the mid-game, and this Renekton is just a punching bag for an on. This is exactly the other way around that it should be, and they're really running out of time. I think if they can't find a winning teamfight in 2 minutes at the Dragon, I'm almost willing to call the game over. Of course, there's still Zeri potential, yes. She's a hyper carry, she's a true hyper carry, she's a win condition in herself. But other than that, the rest of the composition is gonna fall so far behind. Kiaya, because he's a good player and on a good team, is actually on level 13 already on the on. Very close to 14, he should be. So they might even get to 2 on items before that crucial fight. So I'm seeing the chances dwindle away for Cerberus. Artemis is not fast enough with his itemization upgrades compared to the on, compared to the style scaling up, but also Kati and Levi getting stronger and stronger.
And it's it's not just ticking down in terms of the game, in terms of the series, but also just the fact that they have no chance for playoffs. As off screen, it seems like Drakthar just got eviscerated, but no chance for playoffs, or at least very limited chance for playoffs. As of today, I believe Saigon currently sits at 6-5.
No, 7 now.
7-5. My apologies, 7-5. As he sits at the same record. So both of those teams would have to lose both their games next week, and it would have to be a double win from Cerberus. And I don't even know if that's enough mathematically to put them in competition for that last playoff spot. So they're fighting for their life right now inside of this tournament. Do they have enough? They're going to jump onto Artemis immediately, as they want to close out this one just as fast as possible. Ultimate gets popped by Artemis. He's going to lose a little bit longer because of that ultimate coming through. Is he going to be able to find Levi? He does. He at least trades one. The Baron is going to get traded back. His ultimate's going to be popped by Yano. He's going to tag the wall. B gets shut down. Into the cringe compilation goes your hook, unfortunately. But thankfully, because GAM lost their junglers, Cerberus cannot turn for the Baron.
And Cerberus might actually have time to regroup for Dragon, but let's take a look at this.
Oh, wow. Okay.
Just standard. Very nicely done.
Just Vision attempted pushing that out from GAM and or from Cerberus, and they get punished for it. Really well played by Cotty, and then this is the continuation of that play.
And I feel like we've actually seen people be a little bit unfamiliar again with the engage ranges of Vex, but let's yeah, I mean, Artemis steps up like a hero. I'm not entirely sure if he had to do that, but in the end it kind of works out in his favor because he gets an 800 gold shutdown, which brings him ever that much, a little bit closer to that IE. I don't think he has IE already, and they're not going for Dragon. You need to fight this Dragon, in my opinion. Absolutely. Not fighting this Dragon is a death sentence.
It's a difficult position to thrust yourself into. I suppose they could be waiting for, I guess now it's Last Whisper instead of Infinity Edge coming through from Artemis, just so you could try to get through the rest of his members. Maybe you have breakpoints like third item on Talia, second item completed for Vi, things like that you could try to go for, but it is an uphill battle to say the least now, as they have zero wiggle room. Hextech Drake, or Hextech Soul, my apologies, for this GAM team would certainly be a death sentence when delivered by Style from such a far away with the rockets, especially now with Ornn items coming in. Feels like the clock has been ticking, and it feels like Cerberus has unfortunately fallen victim to the sands of time, really just pouring over top of them consistently in a game like this, where the only shot that they've got left is to win a big fight around that next dragon, which they're going to have to play perfectly, because otherwise it is disaster.
Artemis once again stepping too close to the... Oh my god, it's disaster.
Died immediately. He does pop quite a bit of damage. This gets Style on the other side, so there's at least a 1-for-1 as both ADCs are down, but you do not have enough damage to cover everything else. Yano's going to have to do quite a bit of work. Is he going to toss a couple of members in? Levi's on the side with the Cyclone. Damage is coming through from Yano as best he can, but all of his front line is going to be completely thrust away, as Yano just doesn't have the damage to carry the fight. Not as disastrous as I thought it was. It ended up being just a 2-for-3 here for GAM. I thought it was even worse than that, but fortunately, able to get out was Rano P and Yato. As I don't know, the Talia is working in a lot of good ways. This is the pick-off. They burnt everything into Artemis, and he lived for so long, killing on the opposite side as well. The fact that he traded was insane. Yeah,
but Artemis, once again, stepping too close to the line, just walking up to terrain when you don't have vision. Artemis, you really need to cut this out. Twice in a row now, 2 fights in a row. He was targeted by Nautilus ulti without the Nautilus even having to overcommit. That should never happen. Why is Zeri ever an ult range for Nautilus without Nautilus having to do anything? Artemis needs to step up and not fall prey to these engages. Yes, they got away with murder here. Nothing really happened from this fight, and actually kind of cut into the time for GAM to prepare maybe a little bit more of what they want to do for the next dragon, but it's still looming on the horizon. They had Hextech Soul. And also, level 15 from Kiaya, I'm going to say it over and over again, because no other VCS team has figured out how to play on. But of course, the first game, or one of the first games they play on...
Goodbye. As Artemis just gets assassinated, he was contesting for red buff with Levi, and that just ends up meaning nothing as Cotty is there.
Looks almost
Ultimate
tilted.
coming from Yato to try to prevent the wave. Yeah, he definitely looks tilted inside of this game. As the ultimate's going to come through to try to catch as many members as possible. Yato flashes over the wall with the Nautilus hook, but there's just members getting hunted to left and right. As the only member left that matters, I suppose, on the side of Cerberus is Drakthar. He still has the smite, still could try to steal the Baron buff away, but this feels like it is the linchpin in this game for GAM if they grab this one up for free.
Yeah, he needs to steal, and they need to not lose the game instantly if he manages to steal. So Cerberus need to at least have 1 or 2 people survive Oh, and he doesn't even go for it. That's another objective over to GAM. And I actually want to take a second and zoom out and talk about GAM's absolutely amazing run. This is the 7th series in a row they're going to win. The second half of the split, they've been undefeated so far. Levi, please let me speak. Run away.
I'll just leave this. It doesn't really matter that much. This probably won't break that crazy. Yeah, there's nobody to catch them. You're fine.
So they are actually back to their domination of old. And no one is really on the... I mean, we're starting to catch up to their domination, right? But everyone is still speaking about the split as a little bit of a disappointment for GAM, coming from a 14-0. Now, to be fair, they can't go 14-0, obviously. They've already lost 3 series. But they are now, after this one today, 7-0. That's half of 14-0. And they still have 2 to go. They could end the series, the split, on a 9-series winning streak, which is insane considering the form they were in at the start of summer. So it might not be the most dominant split in terms of just game difference or just series score, but it's still an impressive comeback performance for GAM, and they are looking so scary, especially when it comes to mid and late game. They've lost a little bit of their early game excellence, but their mid and late game is all the much better.
The important bit about this, to me at least, is the fact that GAM has been removed from international competition in League of Legends since 2019 Worlds, right? 2019. It's been 3 years, and we haven't seen them. They have been in the hyperbolic time chamber, waiting and scaling to get into a position where they could be the world's competition for VCS. And it would have felt really defeating to watch them lose this split the first time they could have qualified for it. And I'm really happy they're showing up because, I mean, Artemis is just dead.
Toast.
Ultimate's coming through. Drakthar has to flash over the wall. He's followed by Kadi. Kadi, does he have anything else to actually do? No, he doesn't have the damage, but that's going to be Levi following as well. Yado able to shove them off. Kadi also under some legitimate threat right here, as Yado just has to do the damage. Will he be able to? Does cleanse as fast as possible against Levi, but it's not going to mean anything, as all 3 remaining members from the side of Cerberus are pushed away from the bottom side. Pun, the only one remaining on the map at the moment in the mid lane, just trying to push some minions to make sure they can't capitalize anywhere else. But GAM, with this insane team fight, is able to win countless times in a row.
Yeah, and Kati saw Froggy's game early. He had tried in game 1, he had a mediocre Vex game, but now he has found back to his Vex form. He was the best Vex in the league. His Vex was drawing bans, justifiably so, because he was just destroying games every single time he took to the stage with this champion, and he's back in form right now. 8-2-5, 700 gold shutdown, and well, if your Vex, your fat Vex, lands the ultimate on the enemy target, that's the only one that matters, the enemy ADC, and it assassinates him, you're in a really good spot to win the game, because no one else really needs to do much.
Okay, immediately as well, as that's also the soul that's been taken. Artemis is going to try to win this fight basically on his lonesome. He has no additional carry.
Artemis!
Artemis is going to die! Drakthar also just getting hunted. Levi's going to be able to kill it. Okay, style makes me a liar, unfortunately. He's just going to be able to kill him off. And that's probably the end of the game. Like, that's just it. Here and now for GAM. They close things out. And Cerberus goes out of this series after a competitive game number 1 with just a whimper of nothing to really compete with. As Yado and Pun are going to make a very weak effort attempting to try to stop this, but it just doesn't matter. The onslaught's going to continue from the side of GAM. Yado goes desperately into the stopwatch, but he's surrounded, as that's going to be multiple members from GAM surrounding everybody. Wolves collective around the sheep, as they're going to close out this series almost certainly. Take this one. They're coming for the title, Secret.
And it's an exemplary facepalm from the side of Artemis into the wall. He wanted to tell everyone how Cerberus' season is going. What an unfortunate ending to this very interesting game 1. Game 2, unfortunately, Cerberus wasn't able to bring the same level, and GAM looked even better, finishing in 28 minutes. Once again, through team fighting, Cerberus and their star Artemis looked tilted. They looked done after just 10 minutes. Top lane died over and over again. They tried a different strategy, but even this one wasn't enough. Zeri still remains a mystery that Artemis seems to be unable to crack to conquer this champion that should be just in his wheelhouse as a hyper carry.
You'd think that'd be the case, but unfortunately it just doesn't seem to be there for him, as it's defining a lot of the meta, and it's again one of the major reasons, at least in my opinion, that they are having some struggles, especially carrying into the later stage of the game. Yeah, it's a rough series. I do want to say, walking into our final week of play, because this is our last game of the week before our analyst desk kind of takes over, It's worth mentioning at least that it feels like all of our playoff teams are playoff contenders. SE is kind of on the brink, and so is Saigon Buffalo. But so far, Saigon, GAM, and Team Secret seem to all be firing on all cylinders, which is a fantastic thing walking into playoffs where we have 3 legitimate teams that could be contesting for the title alongside, maybe SE is able to actually show up in playoffs the way they did at the beginning of the split.
That's exactly what we want to see at the end of the split. Everyone getting stronger, everyone getting in players form, and this could be the most competitive and most exciting players and qualification to Worlds. Finally, again, after so many years, such an insanely long time, VCS is getting more and more exciting by the minute.
Absolutely is. As we're going to send it to our analyst desk to kind of close out the week and to say goodbye for us as we lead into our final week of the season in the upcoming week. But they're going to close this one out for us and let us know how this one kind of wrapped up. Take it away, Milky and the boys.
Both Rebel and Yulway doing a fantastic job on the cast. Also, thank you, Pun, as well, I'm sure is what might be saying for GAM. Also, I do have to say, Beast, thank you very much for this idea. It was a good one. But let's get your thoughts on that, because game 1, we saw Cerberus putting up a good fight against GAM, but game 2, Cerberus didn't quite look there, did they, Beast?
Yeah, it's exactly as we said. If you have that early game and it's a loss, well, then if you have an even early game, then it's going to be a stomp, and that was a stomp.
And Tim, I mean, there's not really much more to say other than what Beast kind of just said, but I feel a bit bad for Artemis. I'll give that much out for Cerberus.
I mean, Artemis had. I wouldn't yet say he's back. I think he had a decent series. I think he also basically had team comps that basically said, well, it is Artemis or lose. And he had some wild moments. And again, like the ability not to really carry and do anything isn't really great for him to show. And one thing I want to harp back on for this game is just I think both teams actually had solid drafts going into the second phase, and then they literally banned Camille and Victor. And like Vex, I felt like in the first game already on Kati was a problem. We knew that it worked well into the Talia, and in game 2 they just leave it open and said ban the Victor, which is still confusing to me. And then also take out the Camille, which is usually countered by Renekton. So you're basically you're banning away a champion that you want to counter with a blind pick anyways, and then you're also on top of that not banning the champion that was a problem, but a random champion. And I think considering how Kati plays, it shouldn't be as much of an issue, because you usually get mid-prio as Talia and to Victor, so you can just play the game, you can play the map, and you can play for Artemis. So I think specifically those bans really cost them massively in that second ban rotation.
Okay, I want to look towards the future a bit and get your guys' thoughts on this, because right now Cerberus are in a situation where if they want to make playoffs, they have to win their next 2 series, and they need either SBTC or Saigon Buffalo to lose their next 2 series. And then there's the added caveat of Team Wales can't win both of their series. So looking ahead to next week, the final week of regular season, Cerberus's 2 games. They're playing against SBTC themselves and Genius. SBTC have Cerberus and Team Secret. Saigon Buffalo playing against Team Wales and AS Esports. So do you both think there is a situation, or can you see Cerberus winning both of their series and SBTC or Saigon Buffalo losing both of theirs?
No.
I would disagree. I think obviously SE has Team Secret. That you can pretty much put that down as a loss, the way that SE have been playing.
Sure.
And then it's really in both of their hands. It's Cerberus versus SE. Probably going to be the most important match of the week. GAM versus Team Secret for first seed, also massive. So 2 really big important games next week.
Yeah. Also, let's not forget as well, Wales against Buffalo going to be very, very big.
Yeah, I mean, is there a shot that Cerberus can still reach playoffs? Maybe. Because I think it's only 4 teams, right, in playoffs? It's now finally decided.
Yes, it's 4 teams.
Yeah. Okay. So I think they have a shot, but I don't think SBTC is actually gonna drop enough games to make that possible. And then, I think it's probably going to be SBTC and Saigon clenching those wins
So-
because Wales
So
has a
do you
massive.
think? My question is, do you think SBTC then beat Secret?
No.
No.
Uh,
No. But I think they beat Cerberus.
Okay. So essentially, no matter what it is, it's still going to come down to that second series on Thursday between Cerberus and SBTC.
Yeah, it is. But I think SBTC right now is the better team. I think Cerberus.
Agreed.
It's like I feel like they literally like in this series they had like 1.5 players. They had like a bot lane. Artemis had some really
Yardo
good
played
plays.
alright.
Yeah, but like I don't know. It feels so hard to say that this team is gonna do anything because I feel like they fight and die with the AD carry. Even if Yado sometimes does things and has like an okay series, but it is still the Artemis show, and I just think that as it is right now, I think SBTC has probably one of the better bot lanes to just not die, and then I think Emperor is just gonna dab on top lane. So yeah.
Oh yeah.
well, it's a long callback, but the first podcast we did pre-split, I flipped a coin, which is, will Cerberus fix their top jungle problems, or will they continually flip? And that would be what decides whether they get to playoffs or not. And they've just kept flipping the entire split. They've never
What did your
even
coin
tried.
say, actually?
The coin said that they wouldn't make playoffs and SBTC would make playoffs.
Smart coin.
It is really confusing. Let's be real here. They have a really good top laner in POS. They have a really good jungler in Drakthar. Play them at the same time?
Ugh.
Yeah.
I think there'll be a few other VCS analysts who'd argue with you on that one. I think.
I
That
mean, language
prefer
barrier. Am I
Pundit.
right? I mean, I think nobody would argue with the Draktar point. I think we all want to see Draktar over Leash, honestly.
I mean, let's not forget who the best jungler in the VCS really is. It's Blazes, right? So they just need to sign Blazes from Genius to play Graves, and I think they're sorted.
on that point, we wish you a good evening, afternoon. I would say, no.
Yes, I think it is time to close out the stream. So thank you everyone for tuning in. We got to witness the fastest game of this split when Saigon Buffalo beat Genius, and then we got to see GAM dismantling Cerberus, particularly in that second game. But we will be back next week on Thursday as AS Esports take on Genius and SBTC fight against Cerberus, and Cerberus try to keep their playoff hopes alive. But thank you everyone once again for tuning in. Thanks to our wonderful casters and to Tim and Beast for joining me on the analyst desk. We'll see you all on Thursday. Goodbye.